It started last night, and the Rams looked awesome. We have the Utah Jazz welcoming Stephen Curry. Stephen Wardell Curry is rolling down to town tonight, so you can see some Jazz basketball. We have the Utah Hockey Club, unfortunately, getting their heads kicked in for a second night in a row. We have Big 12 Basketball Media Day with Kevin Young and Craig Smith. The Royals have a new coach. RSL is in the postseason. What am I missing? Oh, yeah, I don't know. The World Series starts tonight, 6:08 first pitch, as the Yankees and the Dodgers do battle at Dodger Stadium. It's Garrett Cole, it's Jack Flaherty. It's two aces for these teams. Yankees have better starting pitching. Dodgers are deeper. They have lack of left-handers out of the bullpen, while the Yankees have had bullpen questions all year long. The Dodgers are a slight favorite to win the Fall Classic. And, yeah, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, Major League Soccer, college football, NFL. It just comes down to what we don't talk about today. But we're going to fit in as much as we can over the next 4 hours at Tim Dahle Infinity today at 4594 South State Street, where we're giving away fanny packs. I mean, that's all you need to know. The kids love them. The adults love them. Apparently, there's like a cooler on the back of the fanny pack. So making dreams come true on a Friday afternoon, a beautiful one at that, here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Again, I'm out and about. Come on by and say what's up. It's the home of the forever warranty. Tim Dahle Infinity is 0.9 APR. You're not going to find that anywhere else. They're giving away free car washes if you come in today. And check out the 2025 QX80. It's a beautiful, beautiful car. They have whatever you need. If you're looking for a used car, I would just check out their website. Roll on out here to 4594 South State Street at Tim Dahle Infinity on this Friday afternoon. All right. Our first guest right out of the gates will be Kurt Schmidt, Technical Director for Real Salt Lake. It's RSL Minnesota. On Tuesday of next week, RSL is locked in a top 3 seed in the playoffs. They have a CONCACAF berth now. We'll get an update on the health of the club. There's some issues at center back. Thanks a lot, Brian Vera. And Philip Quinton looks like he might miss some time, too. So we're going to bring in Kurt Schmidt to do a little RSL today. NBA Daily Assist with one of my favorite NBA writers, I mean this, of all time. It's Howard Beck, who's now with Bill Simmons in The Ringer. Going to bring in Howard today. Former Utah quarterback Jordan Wynn joins the program. We'll get you ready for Utah-Houston tomorrow. Chris Kamrani from The Athletic for a bit of everything on a Friday. And then we'll get you ready for the weekend ahead in pro football with our buddy Max Chadwick. So we got Kurt Schmidt, Howard Beck, Jordan Wynn, Chris Kamrani, Max Chadwick, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations. You made it to the weekend. And a few miles, I guess that would be northeast of us, is where we find the producer of this program on a Friday afternoon, Porter Larson, who was just piping 3 irons last night at 11 p.m. What's going on with you, dude?
There you go. Yeah. When the snow's about to fly, Spence, is always the greatest time to dust off the golf clubs and get your swing going, and go from there. But
all right.
I know it makes 0 sense, but I decided to hit the driving range last night with a few buddies. And while I cannot hit a ball straight, Spence, to save my life, and very few times can actually throw a decent round together, I can pipe a ball pretty good. So that's just between you and I.
Do you swear Scout's honor here that your ball speed last night was really 162? That seems excessive.
So according to our top tracer, yes, that was a real photo. Now, to be clear, I have been around like tour golfers, as you know, used to work for one. I can hit with the kind of velocity that you probably, you see on a, now to be clear, I've never shot below like a 90 on a real golf course. So while I can hit it with some velocity that can compare to some real athletes, I cannot play the game anywhere near that level.
Yeah, I can get you 145, 150. I've never seen 160. I'm not sure I ever will. But anyway, nobody gives a rip, Porter. Okay, that's enough. Nobody gives a rip about how hard we can hit golf balls. They want to talk sports, so let's do it. Kurt Schmidt, first guest right out of the gates, live today at Tim Dahle Infinity, 4594 South State Street. Come on by, say what's up, grab a fanny pack, check out their forever warranty. But before we get to Kurt, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too at Standard Restaurant Supply. Check them out, tailgate headquarters, standardrestaurantsupply.com. On a Friday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip. The heart of opening tip today is in Los Angeles for the start of the World Series. I want to be clear. That's where my heart is. That's where my attention is. I'm a Yankee fan, and there are 15-year-olds that don't know what it's like to see the Yankees win a World Series championship. So that's where the attention is. However, we'll get to some of that a little bit later on. On a Friday afternoon, we need to talk a little college football right out of the gates. So ultimately, here's what I want to do this segment. And as I'm talking through this, I want you guys to ask yourself the same questions, namely, what's reasonable to expect tomorrow from Utah football as they take on the Houston Cougars on the road? 5 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time, that's going to be the kick. Porter will have you taken care of with pregame coverage starting at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. The spread has actually moved towards the Utes one more time as we sit here today. I'll call it 217 on a Friday afternoon. Utah is a 4-point favorite. The over-under is 36.5, so Vegas doesn't think these teams are going to score a lot of points because neither of these teams are very good at, scoring points, at least so far. So I've heard a lot of people do the thing, and I've referenced it too. Houston hung 30 points on Texas Christian, a TCU defense where Utah could only figure out how to score 7. So there's that. But if you dig deeper into that game, TCU had 4 turnovers and ultimately shot themselves in the foot. Houston's not a good team. I'm not going to do the thing that people around here tend to do and paint the opponents like BYU broadcasters, paint every BYU opponent as world beaters. So if BYU beats them, it looks better. I'm not going to do that with Houston. Okay, this is a bad team. Utah should go down there and thump them. No matter what. No matter who's under center, no matter who's calling plays. Number one, what I'm looking for tomorrow is an emphatic victory. If we're sitting here in the fourth quarter and we're all sweating like a 13-6 game, I don't even consider that a win. Now, at this point, of course, Utah, hemorrhaging, just trying to get the water out of the canoe with 3 straight losses. I know a win is a win is a win, but let's face it, man. Still, and I know that this week I've been the Ute guy that's hanging on to the last branch before I fall all the way to the ground. I know that I'm that guy because I still have to believe that the talent that is on that roster on paper as they continue to get hold defensively will still at some point manifest itself consistently. Now, we could be so reductive with all this stuff. We really could. We could be reductive because folks these days like reductive statements, she's a communist or whatever your thing is. The reductive statement for Utah football is simply Cam Rising's hurt, and he's been hurt for 2 years. And so Utah football has been anemic offensively for 2 years. We could be reductive if you wanted to, and that's not even necessarily untrue. I'm just over it, okay? It's time to move on, and we know the deal. And it sucks for the kid because he was a great player here and made a lot of memories and made a lot of people, first of all, a lot of money and made the school a lot of money, brought the school a lot of attention. But now it's Isaac Wilson's show, and it's Mike Bajakian's show. So tomorrow against Houston, a team that actually does have a pretty solid defense. They're about top 30 in total D. First of all, on the defensive side for Utah, shut them out, man. Just go down there and shut them out. They didn't score against Cincinnati. Cincinnati blanked them 34-0, and Iowa State blanked them in Houston 20-0. Okay, they hung 14 on a bad Kansas team. The offense for Houston is among the worst in the Big 12. The problem is right now the offense for Utah is also among the worst in the Big 12. So expectations as far as what we'll see tomorrow. I should say what I'm hoping to see tomorrow, okay? I'm not expecting Isaac Wilson to start slinging it around and go for like 320. But can we get 215, 220, 225? Can we get Isaac up to 225 yards tomorrow? I think probably. Can we get a couple of touchdown passes? I'm not looking for 5 or 6. Can we get 1 or 2 touchdown passes? Can we get 225 yards and 2 touchdowns for Isaac, right? Can Mekhi get 20 touches and go for over 100? Houston is vulnerable on the ground. Everybody runs over them, including a bad Kansas team. Every team that Houston plays is able to run the football. So can the O-line, which really has been probably the main bright spot if you had to pick one, and there aren't many offensively, can the O-line open up some lanes? Can we get 20 to 25 touches for Mekhi, either handoffs or swing passes out of the backfield? Can Mekhi Bernard touch the football more than 20 times? Can he go for 120, 130 all-purpose yards to get in the end zone, right? Can we have a good Mekhi Bernard game? And a lot of this is predicated on the O-line, but like I said, if I'm confident about anything with Utah offense right now, and I'm not confident about much, it's that the offensive line will show up and Jim Harding will have them ready to play. So, I don't know, 30, 35 attempts from Isaac, complete 55, 58% of the passes, throw for 220, 225, get in the end zone once or twice. Mekhi Bernard, 20, 25 touches, maybe a touchdown, average about, 4.5, 5 yards a touch. Again, I'm not asking for the world because at this point you haven't proven that you can give that consistently. Can we get 5 catches for Dorian Singer? Can we get 5 or 6 for Brant Kuithe? Can we get 1 big play for Money Parks? Just do what you do. Money Parks is your home run hitter. We've already seen it a couple of times this year. Brant Kuithe is your safety valve and your comforter blanket. So utilize him a little bit more if you can. And Dorian Singer, the most talented wide receiver we've had here since, I don't know, maybe Drez, Darren Carrington, whatever it is. So can the guys on offense simply play within themselves and show incremental progress? And, of course, a lot of the attention will be on the play calling because, look, if the play calling wasn't an issue, because it's kind of interesting when you think about it through the prism of most people who have been watching Utah football for quite a while have had some sort of premonition that the play calling has not been up to par. Now, again, we can be reductive. If Cam Rising's under center, Andy Ludwig might still have his job. I mean, we can be reductive if you want to do that. But for anybody who's been watching Utah football for a while, we've all known the play calling has not been up to snuff. And then it would be brought up in media sessions, and they would say, nothing to see here. Well, the guy who was calling the plays was gently encouraged to find something else to do with his time. My guess is they saw it for a while, too. So can this new approach, and as I've said all week, I'm skeptical because it's the same system with the same personnel as Mike Bajakian said on Tuesday during his media, but will it look a little bit different? What does he know about Isaac Wilson as the quarterback coach that maybe Andy missed? I don't know if there's much there, but ultimately that's kind of the deal as far as what I'm looking for. I want to see an emphatic win. I want to see them go down and shut out Houston, who's already been shut out twice, and then just incremental steps in the right direction offensively. Put up, 24 points. Can we get 24 points, 25 points? I mean, with the defense as good as it is, if Utah was a 28-point-a-night offense, they'd be undefeated right now, right? So there's plenty to look forward to. Real quick, a thought on Brigham Young as far as, what I'm looking for BYU. It's different for BYU because for Utah, if it's a close game and they barely win, I don't think anybody's going to feel good about it. For Brigham Young in Orlando, 1:30 kick coming up tomorrow, get out of Dodge and win anyway. I don't care. Live right on and off the field, make magic happen, whatever you need to do. Okay, do that. The turnovers, the special teams, if it's fluky and lucky, like a lot of people think it's been so far, it doesn't matter. Get out of Dodge with a win. And to me, that's the bottom line. All right, coming up next, we're going to get you ready for the RSL playoff match as Kurt Schmidt's going to stop by. But we're live today at Tim Dahle Infinity. It's 4594 South State Street. And Jazz fan and car aficionado Parker joins the show. How are you, man?
Hey, how's it going, sir?
It's going well. So what do you do out here? What's your job out this way?
Yeah, so I'm one of the salesmen here at Tim Dahle Infinity.
Okay, very nice. So let's start with home of the forever warranty. What does that mean?
Yes, sir. So that's an engine and powertrain warranty. So as long as you own the vehicle, that comes with it. It comes on our new and used vehicles as well. So as soon as the manufacturer warranty ends on our new vehicles, ours kicks in.
That's a good deal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when you say forever warranty, you literally mean forever warranty.
We mean forever.
That's great. 0.9 APR, is that a real thing?
Yeah, we're running our 24s on our 24s that we still have left in stock. We're running 0.9%.
You're not going to get that. I don't know that I've seen that anywhere else.
No, you won't see that. Lowest rate you're seeing right now is probably mid-6s. So.
And who doesn't love free car washes?
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
Free car washes for life. So if you're down in Salt Lake Valley and you bought a car from us, you get a free car wash.
Okay, Parker, I'm going to guess you're 23, 24.
I'm actually 20.
You're 20.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
But you're a Jazz fan.
Of course, all my life.
Your whole life. So I've been around the Jazz forever. I'm 46. Yeah. So if I asked you for your top 5 Jazz favorite players,
okay,
did any of them play in the 80s or the 90s?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Really? Okay, so you're a knowledgeable young Jazz fan.
I know a little bit, yeah.
Give me your top 5 Jazz players then.
I'm going to Darren Williams at 5.
You will? Okay.
Yeah. I'll go 4, Andre Karolinko. He's got a special place. Yeah.
Yep.
And the last little bit, I liked Donovan Mitchell when he was with us.
Hard not to like Donovan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can switch out Carl and Stockton.
Okay, but those are your top 2.
Yeah.
All right, so a good generational Jazz fan.
Yes, sir.
Parker, I'm impressed. We'll chat again, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, come out and say what's up. It is 4594 South State Street, Tim Dahle Infinity. 0.9 APR, haven't seen that anywhere. So if you're looking to buy, this isn't a bad option. As Parker just referenced, home of the forever warranty, free car washes as well, and fanny packs with a portion on the back where you can put like ice and like drinks and stuff. So adult fanny packs, but the kids will like them too. 4594 South State Street. Kurt Schmidt joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Live today, Tim Daly Infinity, 4594 South State Street. Come on by and say what's up. Home of the Forever Warranty. Would love to meet you today. We've got a lot to do on this busy Friday. RSL will not play a match this weekend, but they will start their playoff, hopefully, journey coming up on Tuesday of next week at America First Field against Minnesota. Our next guest joins us from time to time, one of the key decision makers over there, Kurt Schmidt, on a Friday afternoon. Kurt, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I have been training, and I'm about 6 feet. If you need a center back, I think I could probably give you about 15 or 20, and then I might need a sub.
Okay, we can accommodate that.
All right. So what are you going to do, man? Let's start on the back line. My understanding is Philip Quinton. It's a hamstring. We thought it might be a concussion, but thankfully it's not. Obviously, Brian Vera, and we talked about it. Silliness, you can't do it. Marcelo, I'm hearing, isn't fit. So I'm just going to ask you, obviously Jay Glad has one spot. What are some of the options Pablo has for that other center back slot?
Yeah, I mean, you went through, obviously, Vera's suspension, Philip picking up that injury late. Another one you missed was Bodie Hidalgo, who is also got an injury issue that he's dealing with right now. So, look, one of the reasons why we brought, Javane Brown in was that he could play that position, and he pinched in there pretty well for us in the end of that game. And I think that's certainly a spot that he can play. You mentioned Marcelo. Marcelo's healthy. He hasn't played in a while, so certainly match fitness is an issue there as well. And you've got Eric Holt, who's got a good number of minutes under his belt with Monarchs at the end of the season there, so he's got some match sharpness also. So there's still a good amount of guys that are competing for that spot.
Okay, all right. Tell me from your vantage point, and I was at the Vancouver match, always great to see you. After Philip went down, what do you make of the way Pablo handled? You're going to have to correct me here. I think he moved Emeka to right back, moved Brown over next to Jay Glad, and then put in Nelson maybe at central defensive mid. I think those were the switches, Kurt, I believe. So tell me what you made of the way Pablo handled that.
Yeah, Nelson came in the middle. Emeka went to right back, where he played a lot of minutes last year. And then Javane came over to the left, and I think it was something that the staff had discussed even prior to the game, just to be prepared for these types of situations. And that was helpful in taking, I think, a lot of the emotion out of the decision that they needed to make in the moment. They had a plan, which was great. And I think it was just about getting who we felt were the best 11 or the most in-form 11 guys on the field at the same time. So, Emeka's obviously played right back in the past, but not a lot this year. But the feeling was Nelson played really well. So if we can get Nelson in the game and then, push Emeka into another position he's comfortable with, that would be a better group of players on the field.
Tell me from the vantage point of the front office and, the guy in your seat that makes a lot of these decisions, frame the context of what it means, if it means anything. I think it does, of setting a single season record for points with 59 this year, Kurt.
I think it's something that the whole group should be really proud of. And it's a little bit difficult right now to take that pause and look back, because we still have the playoffs in front of us, and we want to put together a good run there and try to win the trophy that we value the most. But when you look back at the season, 59 points is a big milestone for the club, and it's a new target for us to try and surpass again in the future.
Okay, also, I'll be interested in your thoughts here because, we have Jason on the show and then trying to catch up with Jason a little bit off mic too. I'll let Jason speak for himself. I won't speak for him. But it's a 6-game unbeaten run, okay, heading into the postseason. And there's certainly some things to look at as far as a few clean sheets here or there after really giving away points. I mean, I know that is, it's a tough thing to swallow, but you guys left some points on the table with some silly mistakes, as we talked about. Feels like that's been cleaned up a little bit. So it's 6 games unbeaten heading into the playoffs, which is great. But how would you articulate the type of form you believe you're in right now over the last 6 heading into the playoffs?
I'd love to be undefeated and, win every game, but that's not going to happen. So I look at it and say, like you said, 6-game unbeaten. Playoff soccer and playoffs in maybe a lot of sports isn't always sometimes the pinnacle of the beautiful game, and you need to find a way to get results and be the last man standing. So I look at some of the games and the results that we've gotten, whether they're the draws or the wins, and even though they weren't maybe as planned or as we've got those results earlier in the season, our ability to kind of manufacture goals, to manufacture results, and gut some of those games out, I think is something that we need. That's a tool we need in our box for the playoffs. And so I'm happy that we've got that, or we've shown that ability, and we've honed a little bit of that, as well as some of the other stuff that we've done earlier in the season. So we've got a lot in our favor going forward.
Little soccer analysis coming at you. Chicho's a guy that you need to score goals. There you go. You can take notes if you'd like and share it with the group. But ultimately, Kurt, I've heard more than a few people say they feel like he's playing well without finding the back of the net. Do you concur with that assessment? Because obviously you're going to need him to look like he did when you guys ripped off that 15-game unbeaten streak to make serious waves in the postseason. So where are you at right now with your number 9?
Yeah, goals are the hardest, most important thing to do in our game, right? They're very rare. That's why our game can be dramatic, and that's why sometimes an upset can happen and those types of things. And it's also why we invented things like expected goals and those types of things, because goals are sometimes too rare to really quantify everything that's going on. And, I think obviously Chicho, has shown a propensity to score a lot of goals, and that's why he's leading the line for us in those big games. But there's going to be games for him or any striker or any player where, you're playing well, but that final thing, that final action, that goal is not quite fallen yet. And so I think as long as he's creating chances, making himself dangerous in and around the box, then, we know it's going to come. He's too good of a player to go too long without scoring a goal if he's doing everything else that we're asking of him, and that's what he's doing right now. And the last few performances have been really good from him, and he's led the line, he's led the press, he's worked hard, he's stretched the defense, and those are things we want from him apart from him scoring goals. And so we know that if he's doing everything else we're asking, those goals will come.
How much of the goalless streak now, the current situation where it's just been dry for a bit, was losing Andres? I don't know how many of Chicho's goals were assisted by Gomez. I'm sure Trey has it, but certainly those two formed a very dangerous partnership, and Gomez was responsible for 22 goals in 23 games. And we've already talked about the transaction, totally get it, and it's a win for the club by every measurable metric. But it does seem like, and look, maybe it just takes time to get used to Diogo, and maybe it just takes time to get used to Mark Zook and the new players who are here. But how much of Chicho suddenly just not scoring goals for a while do you think has to do with maybe Andres not being here, or attendant to that, just getting used to new teammates?
Yeah, it could be a lot of things. I think that's like the most obvious thing to key in on, but there's any little detail I think can go into this and affect whether or not the ball goes in or doesn't, or whether a shot gets off or doesn't. And I think Andreas was another weapon in his own right, and certainly stepped on the field with his own sort of, I guess, gravity, you could call it, where defenders and teams had to pay attention to him, which maybe gave Chicho a little more freedom to move. And when we bring in new guys, then they don't instantly have that because they haven't quite shown that yet. But as they settle in, as Diogo continues to get minutes under his belt, and Dom, continues to get minutes under his belt, Diego, rounding into form, and obviously Crooks being dangerous as well, like that, those guys will create that as well in Andreas' absence, and I think they'll pick up the slack. And everyone, the term gel always comes to mind, and teams need to gel. And obviously, when we add two new players into the attack, it's not going to maybe be instantaneous, but I think it's coming along, and we've seen some real promising signs the last handful of games.
Oh, sorry for honing in on the most obvious portion of the situation, Kurt. My bad. I'll be better and dig a little bit deeper. All right, so your favorite day yesterday, where the MLSPA releases salary figures. I know you love that. So, to put a little context around what you and your group has done in the front office, and of course ownership always deserves their piece of the credit as well. 6th overall in the Shield race this year. I know at one point you're in the conversation, be maybe atop the table, but things happen, and suspensions, injuries, we know the deal. But according to the figures I have in front of me, you were 20th of 29 teams in overall spend, yet 6th in the overall Shield race, and one of the top, 6 or 7 favorites to win the whole thing. What does that do? When I say that, what does that indicate about the job you guys have done when you're not spending as much money as some of these other teams?
Yeah, I think that's obviously the salary list, and certainly there's another monetary spend that comes into it from ownership, and that's the acquisition fees. And if you add those into those figures, I think we move up maybe a few spots. I don't think we shoot up the entire list if you look at what every team has spent on transfer fees or loan fees for their current squad, how it's constructed. But it's just been it's been a real positive, I think, to see the level of investment from ownership in salaries, for guys like Chicho and Diogo and obviously, Glad and Crooks who are up there as well. And then the transfer fees as well. So, Dominic Marzouk obviously cost us some money to bring in. So did Diogo, so did Andreas when we brought him in, Nelson, Ojeda, these guys. So the level of investment required to bring in those quality players is a huge positive. And, as long as we can continue to make good decisions to find some young players that we can develop and hopefully produce those transfer fees on the back end, we want to keep that going, obviously, going forward.
So put it in context a little bit for those not familiar, and I certainly was not familiar with CONCACAF until we qualified back in 2010, I think, and had a really entertaining home-and-home with, I want to say it was Monterrey. I'm getting old. That was a long time ago. I could be wrong. Humberto Suazo scored the series-clinching goal. And then there was the great CONCACAF run, and so I've become a little bit more familiar with it. It's a really exciting tournament. As a result of locking in a top 3 seed, I believe it will be in February, or maybe we find out the schedule before, where it's the CONCACAF Champions Cup. What does that mean for the club? Unpack kind of the dynamics of that qualification and what it will do for you guys.
Yeah, it's a whole new competition, obviously, where we get to compete against the best teams in the region, right? So obviously North America, U.S. and Canada, obviously Mexico, and then Central American countries, Honduras, Costa Rica, places like that, where we can compete against some of the top clubs from those countries. And it's just a real good way to obviously expand our horizons, but also to grow our club and our brand and become a big club. And if you want to be a big club, you've got to win things, and you got to be in competitions like this to show yourself and prove yourself against that type of competition.
So, yeah, round 1, it looks like 11 home and away series will be played in February. When do you have any idea when you guys will find out the matchup and kind of where you're slotted?
The draw is, I believe, December 10th, and
okay.
then that's when we'll know the opponent, and then obviously the schedule as well. The earliest games are the beginning of February. The later games in the first round are the end of February. So I think we'll at least have probably one game under our belt before the actual MLS season gets underway. It'll have some impact on like our preseason start date and stuff like that. If we start a couple weeks earlier than the season, we might start preseason a couple weeks earlier. But yeah, we hope to see some of that stuff coming out soon.
So the year-end awards were announced. I don't know how much this moves the needle for a guy like you, but I am curious to get your opinion on the award that is named after your father, the Ziggy Schmidt MLS Coach of the Year finalist. Chris Armas, I guess this was decided a few weeks ago because they've been not great as of late. The Tata Martino thing is giving me some Phil Jackson vibes when he coached Michael Jordan and then Shaq and Kobe, but hey, it's Inter Miami, so I get it. And then the coach from the Columbus Crew, Wilfred Nancy. Those are your 3. Am I being a homer when I say that maybe Pablo should be on the list to the award that is named after your pops?
No, I don't think you're being a homer at all. I think it's one of these awards like the MVP award where you can have a pretty spirited debate about the criteria and what it means to be the coach of the year, and like you said, Tata Martino's come in and, it's not surprising that Miami's finished where they finished given the quality of players they have. And you say, well, what did he do and how much did he do and how hard was that compared with, someone like Armas or Wilfred or Pablo, like you mentioned. And often, there's a lot of times where they look at a team that kind of did a worst to first or, a bottom to near the top kind of performance and sort of defies expectations. So it really just depends on kind of how you personally define that award. And I think it's someone that is a top coach, someone that's proven it that they can do it in a couple different situations, and the job that they've done over this season is impressive. And so an impressive job could be taking a team that wasn't in the playoffs last year and getting them in the playoffs, but equally impressive is keeping managing a talented group of players throughout the year and rotations and still achieving results at a high level like both Columbus and Miami have.
Well, let's hone in on the award where we have a little bit of local representation. And I think, and we had him on the show, and he's a delightful kid to interview. Diego Luna right now might be, in my opinion, Kurt, I know you don't want to single anybody out, but he might be in the best form of anyone right now. And, of course, scoring goals always helps. The strike he had where he actually didn't score against Vancouver after like 3 stepovers was almost as impressive as the goal, which was incredible for the second straight week. But we have Diego up for the Young Player of the Year. It looks like Diego Gomez from Miami, who's now on his way to Bournemouth for I think it's 15 mil, if I'm reading that correctly. So a nice little chunk of change for an organization that doesn't need it. But okay, thank you. So give me your thoughts on where we are with Diego right now, his form, and you think he's got a shot at winning this thing?
Yeah, I thought Diego Luna should have won, quote unquote, or been ranked first in the 22 under 22 list, which the league puts out as well. And the Young Player of the Year, I think, is slightly different criteria because I think Andres Gomez, had he still been here, would have been up for Young Player of the Year, but not not 22 under 22. But I think Diego should have been number one in that, given the amount of minutes he's put in this year in his production. And I feel the same way about this award. I think you're hard pressed to find a young player that's contributed as much to his team's success and contributed as much to a successful team's success as Diego has this year.
They give away MLS Assistant Referee of the Year awards. What do we do? Okay, who's going to win that? Is it Kyle Atkins, Logan Brown, or Jeremy Hansen?
Oh man, I let the coaching staff vote on that one, right? They get to pick the guy they dislike the least, I guess. I don't know.
Fair.
I couldn't pick him. I couldn't pick one of those guys out of a lineup. So.
Yeah, that's a waste of time. Stop making these people feel better about themselves when they do such a horrific job. Rant over. All right, Kurt. I want to move over here because I think you're going to be I'm really interested in asking you this because Pablo last week, prior to the Vancouver game, hopped on the show, and I basically said, look, as a result of the scheduling, chaos and some clusters here, there, three games in 1 week over and over because of Leagues Cup, and then players coming and going, international duty, suspension, injuries, what have you. He's had to get creative with his lineups. And so last week, assuming as close to full health as possible, you referenced Bodie earlier, and obviously Vera not available. He'll be back for the second leg against Minnesota. I asked Pablo, are we going to see basically a first-choice 11? And he said, yes, that's what we're going to see. So as we walk through this, Zach appears to have, reemerged and won his job. So it's the vet going into the postseason. And then left to right, Katranis, Quinton, Glad, Brown, Quinton's hurt, central mid, Anelli, and, of course, Ojeda. Then Diogo left, Crooks central, and Diego right, which I found interesting. Diego actually said on the show, like, wherever I play, I'm going to essentially find myself centralized because those are my tendencies. Then obviously Chicho as the 9. So it's different now. I'm assuming we'll see Emeka at right back and then Brown in the middle with Glad. I don't know. But do you feel like that's as close to a first-choice 11 as you? And I know this is Pablo's call, but I'm just interested in your opinion on what Pablo said was going to be as close to a first-choice 11 as we were going to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the cliche, whatever lineup we put out there is the first choice 11 on that day. So, from that standpoint, you are correct. It's pretty early to see what we're gonna have going into Tuesday. I know, we've got some ideas of what it could look like, and certainly how we shaped up after after Quinton had to come out is makes a lot of sense. I think Diego is a player that no matter what position he plays in that attacking setup, does an excellent job of getting on the ball, getting himself involved, finding his touches, and creating problems. So, from that standpoint, whether he's on the right or the left or central, which we've seen at times this year, like he's going to impose himself on the game. So that's great. And then, it's competition, right? And that's what we want out of these guys, because the guy you did mention is Dominic, who I think has put in some good performances lately as well, and he came off the bench and contributed, and I think he's going to have something to say about getting into that team also. So I think the more options Pablo has at his disposal, the better team will be able to put on the field at the end of the day.
So if I ask you if Dominic starts out right and Diego goes back left, you're just going to tell me we'll see, it's up to Pablo.
It is up to Pablo.
I know, but you're a smart guy, Kurt. I'm trying to learn about this stuff.
No, you gotta see. It depends on matchups. It depends on tactics. Minnesota's been one of the teams that's come at us with, defended us essentially with like a mid or lower block kind of 5-man back line, which has been a little more, I don't know, they go a little more man-to-man against us in terms of how we attack. So, for sure we have to find some different solutions in terms of how to break them down. And that could be obviously tactics in terms of how we attack, but that could also be personnel in terms of who we start and who and when we make those subs. So that's the task we have in front of us.
Okay, you kind of just answered the question because you're good at this, but I'll follow up with just a little bit more of an expanded thought and I'll set you loose after this. Minnesota, 2 matches this year, both draws, 1-1 in Minnesota, 0-0 here in Utah. It did look like that they were afraid of you, to be honest. They did not come out and engage in either match. I was listening to Dunny kind of break this down earlier on a pod. He thinks they're probably going to park the bus and try to get a lucky counter goal no matter what. I don't know much about them. I just know what I've seen. So what are the dynamics that come into play for getting off to a good start Tuesday at home and hopefully finishing them in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, look, we can't underestimate them. They're a good team. They're in good form. They push themselves from outside the playoffs with a late season surge to firmly in sixth and even skipping the play-in game. So they're certainly in good form. They know how they want to play, but as you said, we drew both games with them. I thought on the road we were a bit unlucky to draw, to be honest with you. It was a difficult game, and they tied it up late-ish. So it's something that I think we feel confident going into their place in game 2 and getting a result. And then at home I thought they frustrated us, and I think that was a game that the staff has been able to analyze and come up with a few different ideas about how to break them down and create some chances when if they're going to sit back and do something similar.
Kurt, thanks for the time, bud. Have a good weekend, and I'll be out there, so I'll come say hi on Tuesday, all right?
Awesome. See you soon.
All right. Kurt Schmidt, technical director for RSL. The lads are in action on Tuesday in a little playoff action against Minnesota. 7 o'clock Mountain Time on Apple TV. You can go to rsl.com for single-game tickets. All right, we're out here at Infinity, Tim Dahle Infinity. It's 4594 South State Street, and I was unaware I was going to see an old friend today. My guy, Koo Kim. How are you, man?
I'm good. It's like a mini reunion. It's been a long time.
I was telling Jackie, our salesman, I think I've known you like 25 years. We go way back.
Yeah, I remember the RSL days asking you guys for tickets. That was
Absolutely.
Awesome.
How's life, man? You good?
It's good, yeah.
So you're the GM out here?
GM out here,
All right.
And, we're just trying to promote these new QX80s, but our biggest mantra here, unlike any other dealership, we want to make sure we have a culture when a customer comes in, we're just going to rub their backs. Oh, that's easy. We'll take care of that. That's easy. We'll take care of that. And that's our biggest goal here. If you come to Tim Dahle Infinity, we're going to make it feel like it's an easy purchase, hassle-free, and with the mindset of rubbing their backs, making sure it's an easy process.
I like it, and that doesn't surprise me because you've always been that type of guy. You know how to take care
thanks.
of people. I wish I knew you were running the show out here. I just got a new car, man. I would have called you because these are great cars, man. They
are.
Yeah.
They're like the latest and greatest car. You should see the people that are trading their cars in for these QX80s. They're trading in Navigators. They're trading in Suburbans. They're trading in Lexus GXs, Lexus LXs. They're trading in BMWs, like everything. Like all these conquest cars we never thought we were going to get, but people are trading those in to get these cars. And little did I know that QX80s are a really popular car here in the state of Utah. Mm-hmm. But with these new models that came out, they're actually even putting us on a bigger map and bigger platform because of the new revamped style.
That's
nice.
Awesome. Yeah, they're good-looking cars. So tell me about the forever warranty. What does that mean, Koo?
Basically, your powertrain's covered for life as long as you have it serviced, and it's you buy it with under 65,000 miles, right? It's going to be covered for you. The powertrain's covered for life.
For life. Mm-hmm. That's pretty rare, is it not? I'm not in the business, but I don't hear that very often.
It's pretty rare, and the truth is it's one of those things where it's not a moneymaker. We actually lose money on it, but I'm sure we make money on the fact that we're bringing people in. So it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, are they really giving us a forever warranty? It's a real deal.
Yeah. And then I don't know that 0.9 APR?
Yes.
Are we really talking 0.9 APR?
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you what I got on my vehicle, okay? So that sounds pretty cool to me.
Well, the funny thing is, like, other dealers will promote 0.9, but it'll go up to like 36 months, maybe 42 months or something like that. On some of our vehicles, it'll go all the way up to 72 months.
Nice.
So
nice.
It's a real deal.
Well, good to see you, man. We'll chat again, all right?
Yeah.
It's my guy, Koo Kim, man. I didn't even know he's out here, and I've known him like 25 years. So come on out. It's 4594 South State Street. It is Tim Dahle Infinity. Check it out. Forever warranty, 0.9, free car washes, too. Howard Beck joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. We got some new VOs for our NBA Daily Assist, and they're very dramatic. It's just basketball, but he is one of the best in the business. And it's great to have Howard Beck back on the drive on a Friday because it means basketball season is here. Howard, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Spence, I'm great. I'm even better because you're bringing me in to one of my favorite bands, The War on Drugs. It's phenomenal. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. I'm glad I hit this one out of the park. You never know with you. I've got to ask you because I followed your concert journey throughout the course of the off season. We just had War on Drugs and National out here a couple weeks ago. Phenomenal show. Was there one or two shows that stood out during the off season that you attended?
All of them. I had a week where we did like 4 concerts in a week, like right
Nice.
before training camps. So we saw the War on Drugs open for the National in Queens. Also saw the Airborne Toxic event on back-to-back nights in Brooklyn and Manhattan. Saw the Gaslight Anthem at Summer Stage in Central Park. Saw a Band of Horses at the rooftop at Pier 17, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous outdoor venue on the Lower East Side of Manhattan with views of the river and the bridges. It's phenomenal. So, yeah, great summer for concerts, now replaced by nothing but basketball for the next 7-8 months.
I'm sorry, the Airborne what? You had me, and I knew you were gonna. I knew you were gonna out hipster me at one point. You had me, you lost me, then you had me again. The Airborne what?
If I don't out hipster you at least once,
Yeah.
I've failed.
That's fair.
The Airborne Toxic event. That phrase, that name actually comes from a novel. But anyway, they're a great indie rock band based out of L.A. The lead singer, Mikel Jolet, is actually a massive Laker fan besides. So there is an actual NBA tie-in. How about that?
If there's an NBA player who's the basketball equivalent of Airborne Toxic event, who is it and why?
Oh, man. Let's get back to that one in a couple of weeks when we see how this season unfolds. I have some suspects, but I don't necessarily want to hit them yet because I don't want to overreact to a few days of games.
How about Sengun? It seems like the hipsters love Sengun.
Oh, I thought you meant just the toxic part. I thought you were going to make a.
Oh, no, I was saying like who is that? Who's the hipster? Like the player that the hipsters like in the league?
No. Alperen Sengun, right
Yeah.
at the top of the hipster list.
Yeah.
No question.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, Howard, I'm sure you've been dialed in on all things Utah Jazz. We're not going to do, we're not going to, and I make a pledge to you on this Friday that I will not ask you the same questions every week about the Jazz. I hope they give us something a little bit more interesting to talk about week in and week out than we have so far. But since it is our first hit, since you and I last spoke, they did use all 3 of their picks, which we didn't think they'd do. They did hold on to Marketing, which there were some questions there for a minute. The Vegas over-under is about 29.5. And so the roster, once again, is probably too good to be bad enough to get something special. I know the lottery ads are flattened, I know. And they're not good enough to do anything other than maybe scare someone for the last play-in spot. So what are we watching out this way? Like what should motivate Jazz fans to be invested in this team this year?
Wow, that's a tough question. I mean, in part because fandom comes in all shapes and sizes, and people have to decide what's interesting to them.
For sure.
This is not going to be a playoff year, and it's not going to be a play-in year, and I think it's still an open question as to whether it turns out to be a tanking year. Like, as of right now, as you put it well, they're too good to get a high pick and too bad to actually be relevant, but seasons, bring some twists and turns, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they actually leaned into the tank. Now, Markkanen's presence makes that harder to do, but not impossible. We've been waiting for a while. The league has been waiting for a while to see whether they would spin off some of their vets or other useful players. I mean, this is, it's not just the Cooper Flag draft. There's this a lot of buzz from the draft experts as which I am not, but that there's, at least 2 or 3 guys at the top and maybe more that are worth it. So you don't, this is a good year to be in the running, and you don't have to have the worst record. You just need to be, down there. And now Brooklyn and Washington are in a race to the bottom. We have other teams like Portland and Detroit that have been trying to not be in a race to the bottom but can't get out of their own way. So it's a little bit busy, crowded down at the bottom, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz leaned into it. This would be a good time to do it. There's no move in the other direction, right? Like this is not a year where it's like, a clever midseason trade and suddenly they're in the playoffs. I don't think that's on the horizon. And unfortunately, and they did this by design, they can't trade Markkanen until after the season. So there's no scenario to just completely pull the plug. I remain of the view that eventually they're going to probably trade him unless something falls out of the sky that makes it more sensical to keep him and build around him. But I just, the clock's ticking.
The clock is ticking. I'll follow up with a question about Markkanen, and it is only one game, but we certainly have a large sample size with him. And I don't disagree. You and I are on the same page and have been. And look, I'm going to state the obvious. He's really good, and he's 26. He's getting better. Memphis was stunting to stop him in the second half. It didn't matter. He had 35 points on 15 shots, which may not happen again this year. He had 4 of 7 from 3. He was 13 of 14 from the line. The Jazz intentionally got him in switch situations. He bullied smaller players and went around bigger players. Like, he's way better than I ever thought he'd be, and he's a Pac-12 kid at Arizona. I've watched him play since college. But, ultimately I want your thoughts on what you think this season looks like for Markkanen. He's going to be a high-usage guy. Are we going to see the inevitable, his elbow, he has tennis elbow, he's out for – I don't know. If they play him all year, they're going to be in basketball games because I do think he's that good. So just your thoughts, since he's going to be here all year, the one player that probably is worth the price of admission is Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for sure he's primed for another really strong season. He's only gotten better over the last couple of years. I think sometimes the difficulty is because I think by most assessments, Lauri Markkanen is a great player who tracks as your best off as a number 2 or even a number 3 on a championship level team, right? He's not a number 1 on a title team. So what you worry about is that if you don't have enough reliable veteran support around you, you're going to get worn down, and also defenses are really going to key on you, and the better defensive teams will take you out of it and will make you inefficient, and you'll get a little exhausted in the process and maybe a little deflated too when you're not winning. So it's not just as simple as like, oh well, he's really talented, he should put up 25, 8, and 5 every night. Like, sure, possible, but it's not that simple, especially when you're on a team that's as they are in this kind of muddled in between where they're not quite sure where they're going and don't have enough established talent around him. So again, if it weren't for the contract situation and NBA rules, the CBA rules that dictate this, and when he signed that contract, which again was by design, we would be talking about like him being the hottest commodity on the speculative trade market between now and the trade deadline. Instead, it's like just have a really good season, keep your value high, try to win some games. But I mean, you said it, Spence, and it's not going to surprise me if somehow, sometime after the All-Star break, it's he's got some back soreness or a twinge in his knee, and we're just going to like shut him down for a little bit as a precaution. Like that will not surprise me. That is the NBA. That is how these things work. This is the kind of year where it would make sense for a team like the Jazz to do that.
So Will Hardy strikes me as an interesting storyline this year because they actually picked up his 5th-year option, and he's in his 3rd year. So next year's his 4th year. That option was picked up, and then earlier this offseason it was announced like they've got him for 5 years. So clearly they like him, and clearly they believe that he's going to be the guy for this long-term play. But coaches, I know coaches, they all want to win every single night. And so one thing stood out to me when it comes to the Will stuff, game 1 against Memphis, because Keontae in his 2nd year, he's going to be the starting lead guard. Howard, are you on the lam? You good? Everything good? Keontae's okay. Keontae's going to be the lead guard. He gets the starting job. And we have now a sample size of his college career at Baylor into his rookie year and game 1 of season 2 where he doesn't make shots. Like his shooting percentages are horrible. His splits were 39-32 last year. That was about what he was at in college. And he goes 3 of 18 game 1, 1 of 6 from 3. Now he only had 1 turnover, which is a good sign in 31 minutes. But I wonder if Will is simply going to allow these youngsters to play through their mistakes. Like Zanuck and Ainge, every time they have a microphone in front of them, they talk about development, and they use this line, pups can't raise pups. So they bring in some vets, namely Patty Mills, And in the 16 minutes Patty played game one, he didn't take a shot. He didn't take a free throw, but he was plus 10 in 16 because when he came in, the ball started moving, and Keontae, the ball, it's a little bit like Donovan. It sticks with him, and he wants to play more isolation. And ultimately, I think Will's a guy who wants to win, and he does have some veteran pieces on the bench. Like, will he, if the deal is growth, okay, if you're going to bring in another very average basketball team and you sell on your fan base, development, growth, 7 players under 23, will the head coach resist the urge to go with the veteran because he wants to win in order for this young player to develop? And I honestly don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, first on the Will Hardy front, it reminds me of when Danny was in Boston and he hired Brad Stevens, to everyone's great shock, and he gave him I think a 6 or 7 year deal, which again was unheard of. And it's because, one, Danny has ultimate confidence in the coaches he hires. It's like no matter what their experience or lack thereof was at the time he hired him, that's the belief Danny has in the coaches he hires. But two, to me, that's when he picks up the option, that is the not so subtle indication that we know this is a long haul, and we're letting the coach know, look, the pressure's not on you. Don't worry about the wins and losses. You are here to develop these young players. Your future's bright. We think our future's bright. It's going to take some time, and we're all going to be patient. And everybody knows the score. Everybody knows what the deal is. And yeah, I mean, Patty Mills is awesome. He's a great dude too, and he'll be great for that locker room. He'll be a great influence on Keontae and everybody else. But obviously he's got a lot of miles on him. But you do want guys out there to kind of stabilize things at times so it doesn't get out of control. And it's one thing to know that you're going to lose a lot of games. It's another thing to have guys develop bad habits or to just not develop the right way. And so having guys who can reinforce the right messages and who have been around and won at a high level is important.
Last Jazz thing, and you're doing a phenomenal job of getting your way through topics of a team that I'm sure will not do a whole lot for the Ringer this year or mandate a lot of your attention. But I will ask you one more Jazz question because, as you outlined, Lowry is not eligible to be traded. So John Collins is making $26.5 million. He's got a player option next year for $26.5. My guess is he goes ahead and, snags that. And then Clarkson has one more year left on his deal. So Collins and Clarkson can be moved. Is there a market for them at all? Does it make sense for any team to kick the tires on either of those two?
I don't think there's a market for Collins at all. I just don't. Partially because of the price, partially because of just the mixed results from him in Atlanta and Utah, and partially just – we're living in this era of the second apron, and things are just so tight for teams. They got to be really careful. And John Collins, almost certainly is going to pick up that option. And so if you trade for him, you have to expect that 26.5 is on your books next season, and then hamstringing you potentially a little bit thereafter. So you're probably having to send another asset out for a team to trade for him. I don't he's got some talent clearly, but I just don't think he's a player that teams are going to want to acquire at that price and with that commitment for another season at a high number. Clarkson's a proven commodity and a guy who's a really nice, jolt of adrenaline for teams that need bench scoring and a little playmaking with it. There's probably a market there. Let's see how things develop in the months to come. But I think it's really to be determined how teams will operate in this new environment, right? It's even that Tyus Jones signing with the Suns on a minimum deal is just an indication of just how tight the market suddenly became. Tyus Jones is worth way more than that, especially for a team that badly needed a point guard. And that's the environment we're in right now. So I am just curious to see how teams operate and how much latitude they'll give themselves to pick up what we now consider some bad contracts, right? Zach LaVine, in any other era of the NBA, or any other CBA era, would have been traded by now probably. But the combination of his price and his injuries and the mixed results around him over the years, there's just nowhere to send him because it's just really hard now.
Since you brought up the second apron stuff, let me dig into that for a moment because it's been – you do the best you can to try to hone on some things that could be a positive for a fan base to latch onto while they're watching a team that isn't very good. And if we do, stretch our imaginations a little bit based off the current landscape. And, The Athletic did a good 5-piece NBA preview where they kind of walked everybody through this stuff. And we now know what scares billionaires, and that is a second apron. And if, I know a few billionaires, they don't like losing money. Like, that's the deal. And we have seen teams lose talent as a result of financial implications like Denver and like the Clips and others. We could keep going. And it does seem, and unfortunately, the cul-de-sac the Jazz live in, with teams that have good, clean books and draft capital to spare, occupied by San Antonio with Wembanyama and OKC, and they're young and awesome. So the Jazz aren't the only team in the spot that they could capitalize on a financial decision from a team that has talent but are paying that talent way too much money. They call a team like the Jazz that has draft capital and clean books because draft picks are important. The Jazz have a ton. So any thoughts on teams that, and obviously it's game one and we have to wait to see how this plays out, but as the season rolls along, who are the teams that you believe could be in the situation finding themselves wanting to get rid of some talent because of their books, and could the Jazz be able to capitalize on teams shedding such talent because of their assets? That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, Spence, it's a great question. It's one that's one where I would have to kind of start flipping through the pages of everybody's cap sheets and take a look. I hadn't really thought much about who are the guys who might be available just based sure, anybody who wants Zach LaVine who can absorb the contract, you're welcome to him right now. Mm-hmm. And that obviously hasn't happened and probably won't. And there are probably a bunch of guys in that category. If the question is, can the Jazz take advantage of some salary shedding around the league as teams try to duck the second apron or even duck the first apron or just lower their tax bill, those will certainly come about. I don't know who they are right off the top of my head. There's one player that I am curious about as we head into the season because of fit concerns that I had from the moment they acquired him, and that's Julius Randle in Minnesota. Karl-Anthony Towns was traded for almost entirely because of the second apron and his contract, right? And they, the most logical return package is the one they got, Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Dante DiVincenzo is a very easy fit with the Wolves or any other really good team. Randle, we've seen it already because Randle can be kind of a ball stopper, is a little tough fit and be, on top of that, he's on a team that already had Naz Reid, who seemed like the obvious successor to Karl-Anthony Towns whenever they would trade him. So I don't expect Randle is going to be there this time next year. I don't know whether they'll trade him midseason or not. He is a really talented player with some flaws, who's made all the NBA a couple of times, and who I think will be available at the right price. And look, it's very early. They'll try to iron out the rough spots in Minnesota, and we'll see how the chemistry goes there. But he's a guy I'll keep an eye on, but he's obviously not a candidate for the Jazz, given that he and Markkanen essentially play the same position.
So in this era of what the commissioner is really trying to do, and that's, he can say it's not an NFL model, and maybe it's not tit for tat that way, but he's trying to create parity, which I suppose is good news for small markets. And ultimately, a lot of small markets are better as of late as a result of some of the international guys being okay to live in Denver or Milwaukee or whatever, and maybe one day Salt Lake. But in this era of parity, where everybody is supposed to kind of have the best shot of winning this thing, are we ignoring that we might have a historic team in Boston?
Define historic.
Well, it just feels like they're, I don't remember what the record was last year to finish the season. They won 82 of their last 95 games or whatever. And, I'm watching game one against the Knicks, and they averaged, I think, 39 threes taken last year, something like that. And they're like, we're going to take more. I'm like, no, you're not. They're like, watch. They took 61. And, they beat Washington. I don't know, Howard. We might have I don't know if they're going to have to make some financial decisions, but I think as long as this group is whole, they're going to be a real problem.
Within the context of a single season, and they won 64 games last year in the regular season, and they could win 60-plus again, and we'll see how far they can push that. In terms of a historic team and for their overall footprint, they've won one championship. We'll see if they can win another. No one's gone back to back, obviously, since the 17 and 18 Warriors. And I think the Celtics have a chance to not only repeat, but have a chance to have a run here. But the problem is, and everybody knows this, there's already two big issues on the horizon for them. One is the payroll and the second apron issues that come with it. This team may only have one more season in it before they have to start spinning off some of these pieces. The problem with being really smart about acquiring all these guys, Derek White and Drew Holiday and Porzingis to go with Brown and Tatum, is that eventually it becomes untenable, and the luxury tax bill becomes absolutely massive, which brings us to the second point, which is they're for sale. And we don't know if the new owner will prioritize winning at the expense of losing tens of millions in luxury tax payments the way that the current ownership has. So, the appetite for that varies from one owner to the next. So we'll see. But within the context of this season, could they have a historically efficient, great offense? Sure. Could they be the first team since the Warriors to go back-to-back? Sure. Do they have a 5-year run in them? Yeah, that part, that's where it gets dicey, because eventually you're probably spinning off one or two of their rotation guys to split it among a bunch of lesser or less expensive players. And that's going to be the trick, and that'll be the trick for any really good team in the era of the second apron. There's a finality or an expiration date almost on any team with a lot of talent, because eventually it becomes too expensive and too limiting to what else you can do with your roster.
All right, Howard, before I set you loose, Stephen Wardell Curry is in Salt Lake City tonight, so Jazz fans get to go watch the Warriors, and I'm watching Game 1. Portland is probably the only team on paper that's worse than Utah West, and so, but I'm watching them start Trace Jackson Davis, and I'm thinking, why didn't you go all in on Markkanen? Because he's really good, and I feel like they're going to waste the final few years of Steph's career. Draymond gets teed up Game 1 because that's what Draymond does. So I don't know what you learned from Game 1, but what would you say to Jazz fans about this Warrior team that's in town tonight?
I'm actually really intrigued by the Warriors, and I think they actually could be, we're always looking at this time of year like, okay, who could defy expectations, one direction or the other. I think the Warriors have a chance to be a top 6 playoff team with one of the guaranteed playoff spots. They won 47 games last year despite Draymond being suspended a bunch of games. They would have easily won 50 if he had just had a normal, even by his standards, season. And Steph is still playing at an MVP level, and we saw it again in the Olympics. Draymond's still playing at an incredibly high level when he's not getting kicked out of games. And I'm really intrigued by that young group because, yes, so Trace Jackson Davis had some really nice moments as a rookie last year. Podziemski, obviously, was really good. I think, probably, I don't know where things landed on those trade talks with the Jazz, but the Warriors have been trying to maintain that balance between competing at a high level with Steph and not mortgaging the entire future. Markkanen's young enough that I wouldn't have hesitated personally to give up more than one young player, but I don't know where exactly those things got hung up. Between Podziemski, Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis, the guys that they got by doing the sign and trade with Klay Thompson, and they kind of spread what they would have paid him among Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton. They've got a really deep rotation and still an incredible all-time player in Steph at the center of it. And in an era of parity where most teams do not have multiple stars and are going with more of a ensemble around one really great player, the Warriors, I think, have enough to be a really strong team. And, if nothing else, we know Steph will provide plenty of fireworks along the way.
For sure. Howard, tell all of our listeners where they can find your work this year.
Always at theringer.com, and every Tuesday and Friday on the Real Ones podcast, on the Ringer NBA show. And they can always find me on Twitter at Howard Beck, where I somehow am still begrudgingly hanging out.
You and me both. Howard, great to have you back, my friend. Have a good weekend, okay?
You too, Spence. Thanks, man.
Great Howard Beck. Jazz in action tonight against the Golden State Warriors. So if you're looking for something to do, head on down and see Golden State play the Utah Jazz. All right, we're live today at Tim Dahle Infinity. And my guy Parker hops on once again. Parker, happy Friday, man. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you, sir?
So I would imagine you're a Jazz fan, but you got respect for Steph, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You like me some Steph,
absolutely.
Yeah?
Greatest point guard of all time.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll say it.
Better than Magic.
I got to say it.
I like it. We are in Salt Lake, so I do have to ask you, better than Stockton. Obviously he is, but we're not allowed to say that out loud, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Man, Steph Curry, best point guard of all time. I'm going to have to let that digest, Parker, and we'll get you back. All right, home of the forever warranty. What does that mean?
Yes, sir. So it's an engine and powertrain warranty for as long as you own the vehicle. Only caveat is if you live within 50 miles, we ask that you service it with us, obviously, and us being the only Infinity store in the state. That would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
But if you're outside that 50 miles, you just keep detailed service records, and it holds on to it the whole time.
There you go. I mean, essentially, if you get it serviced enough, it's for life, right?
Exactly.
That's why they call it the forever warranty. Let me, away from the script a little bit. Infinity it's a great car.
Absolutely.
I have an uncle who will only drive Infinities, and he tried to convince my grandfather, who was a Mercedes guy his whole life, just try it. And my grandpa finally got one and just loved it later on in life. What do you like most about the line of cars you have here?
No, we have some absolutely beautiful cars, and in my opinion, you're not on the same level as Mercedes. I would say ours ride really nice, though, comparatively. Like, you're driving, look at the QX80. As big as that vehicle is, it doesn't drive like a truck. Like, you see those other big 3-row SUVs are going to drive like trucks. Say these drive like your normal, typical SUV. And
it gets going a little bit?
Yeah. Exactly.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. I have this on the script, so I have to ask you, and I've talked to Ku about this. 0.9 APR. Is that just a thing that you're saying, or do you really do that?
We're doing 0.9 on our 24s in stock.
I don't want to tell you what I just got. I was telling Ku I just bought a new car. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to tell you what I got. So that's a real thing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, 0.9 on all 24s that we have in stock, and also another thing as well. On our 25 QX80s, we're running 5.9, which you very rarely see on a 25. So
awesome, man. Well, thanks for hopping by. We'll chat again, okay?
I got to tell one more thing.
Yeah, do it.
Hey, it was a push-off in Game 6.
Oh, sure was. Sure was. All right, you won the Jazz fans back. All right, come on out. Tim Daly Infinity is where we're at. It's 4594 South State Street. We have a few more fanny packs, twisted lemonade fanny packs. Oh, if you're into such things, come on by and grab one. Coming up next, we'll get to college football. Started the show with college football. We'll do some more coming up on the other side. Jordan Wynn will join us, former Utah quarterback. Chris Camerani, because, of course, it's a Friday. Then Max Chadwick to talk a little pro football. Busy Friday show. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Smashed 2 Uncrustables during the break. No big deal. Grape, just so you know. Porter, Uncrustables, right now atop the snack ranking. Don't at me, bro.
And they're staying there. They're staying up atop the ranking, just to be clear.
Yeah. Now, our next guest is a football player, and he's actually a father. So my guess is Jordan Wynn has a hot take on Uncrustables. Jordan, what's the Jordan Wynn take on Uncrustables?
Man, I used to eat those. That was like my go-to to gain weight my freshman year in the middle of the night. I'm a huge fan. Top notch for camping, hiking, all
there you go. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Now, do you go grape? Do you go strawberry? What's the preferred?
Grape, and you freeze them.
Ooh, see, Jordan, we need to hang out, man. You and I are kindred spirits. We need to spend time together. We'll just smash them Uncrustables. How you been, buddy? Thanks for the time.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Hoping for a Utes win tomorrow. My goodness.
Sure. And let's get into it. You know, from an alum, from a legend up there, what's the last 3 weeks been like for you to just kind of witness?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, not what people want to see, and that's the side of sports that just is difficult. You know, it's a production-oriented business. People don't care. They want to win, and they want you to win now, and it doesn't matter if, you know, your super senior is done and is out and a freshman's playing, or vice versa. You know, I feel for Cam, feel for Ludd. I mean, there's a whole lot of things going on up there, and I'm just hoping they can get it figured out tomorrow.
Since you referenced Coach Ludwig, obviously, you know, Andy has stepped aside, and nobody knows if this was his call or he was encouraged to find something else to do with his time. It doesn't matter. He's not here anymore. And ultimately, Jordan, where I want to start is, as Andy walks out the door, how should Ute fans view his overall? Because we all know it hasn't been good enough. He knows it hasn't been good enough, and it hasn't been good enough for a while. And so that's the deal. When it comes to sports, if you're not performing, they're going to find somebody else to step in. That's part of the deal. We all know it. But how should he be remembered as he steps aside at the University of Utah?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably, I mean, for sure, the best play caller OC I think Utah's ever had. I mean, a Sugar Bowl win, 2 Rose Bowls, a ton of conference championships. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. I think, you know, he knew just as well as everybody that this year wasn't going to plan. And I think, frankly, I mean, the last 2 years really haven't gone to plan due to injuries. And you know, you kind of start to look around and think what else could have been done in recruiting, right? I think, again, there's no crystal ball in hindsight's 2020, but, I mean, you got to have somebody ready to go. And I know there's a lot of excitement around Isaac, and I certainly have some, but it's tough, and I feel for the seniors, you know, to look at an 18-year-old and be like, hey, this is my last year playing football maybe ever. Like, I'm not in for a rebuild here and for experience for you. Like, we all need to win now, and it feels that way top to bottom. And, you know, I think, though, at the end of the day, I mean, Ludd was phenomenal and did a great job, and hopefully he lands somewhere that compensates him and he's happy with.
So Mike Bajakian, who now is in calling plays, excuse me, did a little media on Tuesday, Jordan, and he said, look, the system is the system. And this isn't the NFL. When you take a new job in pro football, call the GM and say, I need a left tackle or I need a wide receiver. The personnel group is the same. It's not changing, and the system is the system. So, you know, you're a guy who played the position from the quarterback standpoint, from Isaac's standpoint. And when Isaac was interviewed this week, he looked like he was going to cry. He said he came here to play for Andy. But Mike's been the quarterback's coach. He has a wealth of experience calling plays, and results honestly are mixed. You can do your Google search yourself and look at where Mike has been and how things have gone. So I guess the way I'll phrase the question is, from the quarterback standpoint, what can a change in that position do, and what are you hoping to see out of Isaac tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot that can really happen. I think sometimes you just need a spark, something fresh. I think, you know, I've been very vocal about simplifying the offense, try to play fast, manufacture very low-risk situations for Isaac, particularly in the red zone. I spoke about it with Porter, you know, the last 3 weeks. I mean, find ways to get the ball out of his hands fast. preferably not throwing actually into the end zone, right? I think the windows start to get tight, and frankly, that's where things have just fallen off. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, I've been a part of, losing the guy that brought you in and who you wanted to play for, and Dave Schramm. Dave Schramm was the one that recruited me, was the OC quarterback coach, bounced around to different positions, and then ultimately left to go to Fresno State. And it's not fun, especially as things are changing, right? You always kind of look to the guy that recruited you, especially if they're on your side of the ball, as like an anchor of like, okay, at least if this guy's still here, I know there's somebody in the coaches' meeting rooms that's still speaking for me. And hopefully in a very positive light, right? When you lose that guy, and when you lose the guy you came to play for, it's almost like a complete reset. And so I think, success is the ultimate Band-Aid. You hope that there's a lot of success and everything goes back to sunshine and rainbows here over the next few weeks. But if it's not, then I don't know what's going to happen. To get interesting.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I had Mark Harlan on this week, and, I asked Mark if he considered any other changes. Of course, he's not going to tell me, but my job is to ask those questions. I wonder, from your standpoint, with what you've seen, are there any other things that stand out to you about some adjustments that need to be made? I mean, hard conversations are had. We have to be adults here. I mean, certainly money comes into play with these athletes getting paid. It does change things, but it's been not good enough for quite a while. And yes, we give them a pass for the injuries from last season, but the play calling for a long time has left something to be desired. Now, the problem, Jordan, and you've alluded to this, we can be reductive and simply say if Cam was healthy, things would be different, but he's not. It's time to move on. So are there any other things that you feel like from an alum you would like to see adjusted a little bit?
Hard to say, and I think this has kind of been an ongoing issue, particularly at the quarterback position. I mean, going back to when I was there, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword when you have a guy at that position that plays young and plays for a long time. I think about myself. I think about, Travis Wilson was there for a while. You got Tyler Huntley that was there for a while. You had Cam now that was there for a while. It's hard to recruit a guy, especially a super talented guy, and say, hey, you're going to have to come in and sit for, 2 years. The way people are, and especially a 17-year-old is, I mean, everybody wants everything right now.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to get it, they're going to go find it somewhere else, right? And so I look more towards that and trying to find a fix for something like that. Try to find, you got to get creative, right? I think the transfer portal's opened up a bunch. Get creative there. I know NIL is the Wild West, but there's, certainly ways to throw things monetarily to get a guy to come here. And even if it's, hey, you might be the guy, you might not, just having somebody there that's frankly ready to go, especially if you're going to keep the system, right? Like, again, hindsight's 2020. I was semi-alluding to this, but you look at, like, Bryson Barnes this offseason. If you find a way to keep him, it would be year 2, 3, 4 in the system. He might be a little more serviceable right now than an Isaac Wilson, who's getting his first playing snaps ever in college as an 18-year-old, right? And I know, again, NIL comes into play. Guys want to play. Bryson wanted to play. He certainly didn't want to, be the backup, but you got to find ways to have, just look at the history. All those guys I just rattled off that played early and played for a long time, we all had a ton of injuries. So you got to, kind of do a little self-scout and look back to the past and go, what's been our reason why we haven't won? There's an argument to be made there that the guy that fills in hasn't been able to fill in at the level that's expected. And so I would look at that area. How do we fill that? How do you get recruiting, NIL, transfers, however it may be? But, there's no lack in defense. I would say this is probably the most talented offensive skill roster Utah's had in a long time. The offensive line is solid. You're missing one piece, and you probably have for a few years. So, again, I look at that and go, here's job number one, everyone on the staff. We need to find somebody that can do this.
Yeah, well said. Some good points in there. From the standpoint of what we should, I don't know if the it's hard to know how to ask the question. Like, I know what we all hope for, but I wonder what's realistic to expect. Because, look, Isaac was trying to dissect the secondary from Farmington less than a year ago, all right? Like, he's not going to be able to, like, step in and slice up the Big 12. It's very rare that a kid this age is going to be able to carry a football team. So when I started the show today, I said, can we get 215 yards from him? Can we get 1 or 2 touchdowns? And you know what? He might throw a pick because that's kind of what he does. But can we get 3 or 4 sustained drives? Can Dorian get 5 or 6 catches and Brant 4 or 5? Like, incremental steps in the right direction. We're not expecting, at least I'm not, tomorrow to go for 340 and 4 touchdowns. What does a win for Isaac specifically look and sound like tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off, frankly. I mean, it's baby steps. I mean, I would even argue it even goes keep it even simpler. It just starts with a win. I don't think anybody cares if he throws for 50 yards. And, if they get a W, I think that's moving in the right direction with where they're headed right now. But, look, the kid's super talented. There's a way to scheme for his, lack of a better term, youngness. And, yeah, say, hey, can you get us 150 to 200 yards and a touchdown or 2? If you give him that very clear instruction, it takes a little bit of the pressure off him, right? It's like you don't need to be the face of the program. You don't need to go throw for 400 yards. You don't need to go win us the football game. You just need to do your job at a, serviceable level, and there's enough people around you and on the other side of the ball that can do the rest. So, to answer your question, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, get up into the 40% third down conversion range and don't leave the red zone without points. That's a win. I mean, I don't think you can ask too much more of that from him right now.
So I agree with you that, based off of how bad it's been, just coming home from Houston with a win will kind of calm the waters a little bit. But I got to say, man, if we're in the fourth quarter tomorrow and it's 13-6 and, we're sweating it out the way that we have, I don't know that that's going to be good enough, man. I feel like they need to go down and thump them. That's just where I'm at.
No, and I don't think you're wrong. Especially with what Houston has put out there this year. I don't even think that really cures too much of the frustration. I think it's just an incremental step towards the right direction. But, look, with the team that you're playing this weekend, people aren't going to be happy if you, just like you said, if it's 7-3 at halftime and the final's 20-13, there's still going to be a lot of uneasy fans. So, you got to do something. I've been talking, my brother calls plays for an 11-year-old team, and he's in a championship game this Saturday against a team that's probably way more talented than theirs. And I'm like, dude, throw every trick play you got at him. Like, you got nothing to lose. Throw something different this Saturday to light the scoreboard up. I mean, have 4 to 5 gadgets, have a sound running game plan, and then shore up third down and red zone to help the young kid out here and just build some confidence, right? I think have the team come back with some positivity, not going, we just grinded that out 10-3. Come back with a 30-7 win, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking for. So let's dig in a little bit because you referenced some interesting things there about the play calling and what it could look like on Saturday. And Scott Mitchell jumped on the show Monday or Tuesday because you hear a lot of people say, well, will they open up the playbook? How much of Andy and now Mike's playbook will be accessible to Isaac? And Scott's point is with a young quarterback, really what you want is a handful of plays that he can execute as opposed to overwhelming him with data and information. What's your opinion on that as far as what Mike needs to look at? When you hear people say, open up the playbook, is that an accurate approach for a young quarterback? Or like Scott, do you believe they just need to come up with, 6, 7, 8, 9 plays they know Isaac is proficient at?
Yeah, probably somewhere in the middle a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So definitely leaning more towards what Scott's saying. I think the term opening up the playbook is so
it's message boardy, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I don't know the term, right? That's just it's a trendy thing to say for Utah fans. We need to open up the playbook. It's if you're talking about that, then you just you don't know Kyle Whittingham football, frankly. I mean, opening up the playbook, to me, if I'm watching Utah football, win the game 49-7 and, throw a trick play or two for a touchdown, have a special teams or defensive, impact play that puts you in the red zone or scores, and you run the ball twice for a touchdown, and, the QB maybe throws one or two. Like, to me, that's the playbook being successful. And so I would lean more towards, don't inundate the kid. He's already feeling that way with a ton of plays. Just, have him go through the call sheet, pick out his best 10 to 15, and then run them out of 2 to 3 different formations each, throw in a motion, and go play ball and live with the results. We did this a bunch when I was at Hawaii. I mean, we'd go against teams that were a lot more talented than us. I'd walk into games with my call sheet, I think, had 45 plays in total. 5 run concepts, like 5 to 10 throw concepts, and then 2 to 3 formations of each, and then 4 to 5 gadgets, and go do your thing, man. You recruited the kid because he's talented. When you inundate these guys, they don't play to their ability, they're thinking. So try to eliminate that, and then, live with the results and adjust from there.
All right, Jordan, you know the man a way that none of us do. You played for the man. And so, look, I want to be clear. Every time I, kind of bring this up, I do it with the preface of I don't know if this is Coach Witt's last year. I know that people who know a lot better than I would believe that it is. Do you think – so we're going to operate off a tough hypothetical here, and I apologize. So if the season continues to look the way it has and they end with like 6 or 7 wins, which we all hope doesn't happen, do you think that has any bearing on whether or not Kyle decides he wants to continue to do this?
That's a good question. I don't think that has a whole lot of weight on him.
Yeah.
I think I personally think he knows when the time is right, and that can change. That also can change on a week-to-week basis, right? I think 4 weeks ago, probably not a thought, right? You win on the road with Isaac, Cam's coming back soon. You're probably thinking, if you're Kyle, like, let me, figure this out. This still has the opportunity to be a really great year, and then who knows what happens after. Now the way it's going, you shake up the staff, and again, I don't know anything. I don't talk to a lot of people in the program. I don't ask questions, and that's why I still have access to the program at times. If you look from the outside in and you think, okay, here's a guy who is an offensive, consultant QB coach. They promote him. I'm gonna put it out there. Do you wonder if Kyle looked at Morgan and said, hey, we're just gonna get through this year, and then the keys are yours, and go find a guy, whoever you want. Or did Kyle look around and say, I want to get through this year, and then I want to go hire a guy because I want to go for another year? There's two sides to it. I would lean, like, the way this thing is going, he's accomplished so much. There's never a good time to get out. There's never a good time. It's like Vegas. When you're up, nobody leaves, right? Like, when you're winning games, when you're going to Rose Bowls, you don't leave. And so I don't know. I would lean, it could be his last year.
All right, Jordan, last thing, and I'll set you loose. I'll speak for myself, okay? I expected at this point on the schedule and the calendar for Utah to be 7-0, undefeated. I expected the offense to look high-powered, opportunistic. I expected complimentary football. I expected Rice-Echo Stadium to be full and loud like it usually is. And all of those things are happening about 40 miles south of here. I hate to tell you that. So I hear it already. Does it sting even more that while Utah is trying to jettison water out of the boat, Brigham Young is undefeated and nearly a top 10 football team right now?
Of course it stings. I mean, I live down in Happy Valley. In Lee.
Oh, I didn't know that. Goodness gracious.
I can't tell you how many. I mean, I'm talking all age groups, from 7-year-old to 60-year-old. When I'm out there mowing my lawn, and I got my Ute flag out there, and they know who I am, and they know what's going on. And they walk by and they give me that little grin and go, "Hey, see what the Cougs did this week?" And I'm livid. I'm sick of it. And that's just the nature of that rivalry. It's what makes it so fun. But my goodness, it definitely makes it worse. I mean, and again, I love Kalani. I love Rod. I love Coach Hill. Great people. We're up there on the staff when I played, like, have the utmost respect for them. But when you put on the blue uniform now, I mean, I've been those, I haven't kept it a secret. I hope they lose every game 100-0. And so now you flip that around and we're struggling and they're, flying about as high as you can get in a really long time. You bet it makes it worse than if both teams were struggling.
And it's the smugness of it's the wry little grin when they see you. It's the smugness, like the whole thing, man. So I don't know, dude. Hopefully this thing turns around, Jordan. Thanks for your time, brother. Have a good weekend, okay?
Yep. You as well.
All right, the great Jordan Wynn, former Utah quarterback. Appreciate his time. Utah trying to get right. BYU trying to stay undefeated. Big college football weekend ahead. Live today on a Friday at Tim Dahle Infinity. It's the only Infinity dealership in the state. They're great cars. It's 4594 South State Street. And my guy Koo Kim, the GM, stops by once again. Happy Friday, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No,
I love it.
Thanks for having us. What are you a football fan? What do you follow? You were a soccer fan back in the day.
No, I like both. The truth is I was a big football fan until I had kids. Now all we watch is like Disney Channel.
Now you don't have time. It's Blue's Clues and such, right?
It's true, but football, man, when you are a fan, it takes up a lot of your time, especially if you want to be on top of it all.
No, it does, for sure, for sure. All right, let's just start with why Infinity kind of sets itself apart. I've told you the anecdote about my uncle who will only drive them. It's the only car he will drive, and he tried to convince my grandpa for years, who was a Mercedes guy, you should try one, and he got one right before he passed, but he got one that was the last car he had. He loved it. Like, what makes Infinity different?
The biggest thing with the Infinities is you get the loyalists, or I guess nowadays they call them fanboys, right? So people that have been driving Infinities, they love their Infinities, especially here in Utah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they won't buy anything else. They think that Mercedes aren't the best cars. They think that Lexus is just, they've kind of gone downhill. They think that Toyotas have done the same thing. They think that BMWs are just, they have their own opinions, right? But people that have been driving these Infinities and driving them forever, they love them.
Yeah,
so that's what I can only equate it to them being called fanboys.
So,
but they love those cars.
Yeah, my uncle, fanboy, Infinity fanboy for sure. He's had like 7 of them. What makes you guys different out here? You kind of outlined your approach and your first hit. Let's revisit that.
Yeah, one of the things that we have here is I tried to create a culture here in the dealership where we're just focused on, rubbing their back. Like I don't want any kind of objections for selling a car ever. Right? If a customer wants to come in and say, hey, can you give me a trade value? Some dealerships will say, well, you got to bring your car in. I'd rather say, here's a trade value. Here's a range from here to here, right? I want to make sure everything is easy for that person. Hey, this new QX80, I know that other dealerships are charging an addendum or charging a surcharge. Are you guys doing the same thing? No, just come on down. Do I have to finance? Nope, just come on down, right? Well, do I have to do this? Do I have to have a trade? No, just come on down, right? It's all about rubbing their back, making sure they feel like it's an easy process. I don't want them to feel like, I don't want to go to another dealership. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have any kind of hindrances in buying a car. It's such a pain in the butt, to do this. But I want customers to come here feeling like it's an easy process. And I want that to be reiterated to any other friends and family, right? That's really what I want. Because the biggest thing in the car dealership is you have salesmen that'll end up leaving their career in the car business and going and pursuing a different career, but they still feel like they need to come back with their friends and family to help them buy the car. My number one goal in my salespeople is that they can tell their friends and family if they ever leave the car business, go down and see Tim Dahle Infinity. They'll take care of you and not have to feel like that to babysit them in the purchase.
Love it.
That's and that's what I really truly feel like. I don't want, friends and family for former salespeople to feel like they have to come in and be ready to buy a car with the help of a salesman, a former salesman. I want every salesman to say, go see Koo, go see Tim Dahle, go see Infinity, and feel like they can have the assurance that they'll get a great deal. That's my biggest goal.
You've got a couple things, and I'm not being hyperbolic, that I don't think I've ever heard of, and I'm not in the business. But let's start with the forever warranty. I mean, it literally means the way it sounds. So, unpack it for us.
Yeah, basically, any vehicle that qualifies, you get the forever warranty, right? That basically covers everything in the powertrain for the life of the car and however long you own it. As long as it's being serviced and maintained here at one of the Tim Dahle stores, it'll be covered for the whole lifetime of the vehicle. Now, for instance, if you move out of the state, you can still get it maintained by a certified technician. It would still be covered too, right? And to put things in perspective, it's not one of those gimmicks where it's like we're just trying to get people in. The truth is, if you look at our losses on that, we haven't made money on that car. Mm-hmm. But from a marketing standpoint, maybe we have. But the truth is, if you look at it from a portfolio and what the actuaries tell us, you guys are losing money. Why are you guys still doing this, right? But it's a differentiator for any consumer to come to a Tim Daly store knowing that we have the forever warranty. It also gives assurance to any salesperson that's selling the car, telling the customer that we have the forever warranty, because it gives them, I guess, more confidence in selling the car. Because one of the things that I don't know if I'm going too far off on a tangent.
No, you're good. You're good.
A lot of salesmen, they think, oh, I don't want to sell them this car. What if it breaks down? What if it breaks down? But being a salesman that can have the assurance of knowing that they're selling a customer a solid vehicle, it makes it easier for the salesperson too.
For sure. Last thing, 0.9 APR. Again, I'm not in the business, and I just bought a car. I'm not. Few technical difficulties. We're back at it. Apologize for that during the break. We're live today at Tim Daly Infinity at 4594 South State Street. Come on by and say hi. Home of the Forever Warranty. We've got Chris Camerani from The Athletic, as we are wont to do every Friday, coming up in a bit. But we'll talk more football now. Great to have Max Chadwick back on the show on a Friday. Max, happy Friday, man. How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're good. I'm learning on your Twitter bio that you're a Syracuse guy. You're a Newhouse guy. Is this true?
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, after last night, it is true.
Well, I ask because my former producer, who still works in the market, JP Chunga, is a proud Syracuse alum. Are you as insufferable with your Syracuse Newhouse pride as he is?
No, I'm absolutely not. No, I understand that we are the most hated people in school. I completely understood why, honestly. So, no, I'm not as insufferable as I know a lot of other Newhouse people are about it, though.
Okay, that's good to know because it's bad, Max, but we can move on from it. I'm glad you're not in that category. I'll tell you what, Max, I'll just start with this. I thought after this amount of football being played, the University of Utah would be 7-0. I thought the offense would be high-powered. I thought the defense would be causing havoc. I thought the stadium would be loud and a great home field advantage. And after 7 games, all that is happening about 40 miles down south, where Brigham Young is 7-0 and undefeated in conference. What do you make of where we find ourselves out in this state with our 2 Big 12 football teams?
Yeah, and listen, if you told me one of the Utah schools was going to be 6-6 and the other one was going to be pushing for a playoff spot, I would have said the complete opposite of what's happening right now, like you just said, right? So it's been pretty shocking to watch both BYU and Utah, honestly, this year. And BYU probably, I would say, is probably going to go like 11-1 this year, make the Big 12 title game. And like I said, I think Utah might be in for a 6-6 type season with Isaac Wilson now as a starting quarterback the rest of the year. So, yeah, it's been a pretty shocking year in college football all around the country. And it's no stranger to the state of Utah either.
6-6, my goodness. And, I don't know that you're wrong. I hope that you are, as we are the home of the Utes. So you reference young Isaac Wilson under center. And the news out this way, Max, as you know, is Andy Ludwig steps aside as the offensive coordinator. We don't know if that was Andy's choice or if he was encouraged to find something more constructive to do with his time. We don't know. Doesn't matter, really. He's gone. And Mike Bajakian steps in as the play caller, and Mike has been around football for a number of years, coaching since '96, mostly on the offensive side of the football, with mixed results in his past. So what's reasonable to expect now that we know who the quarterback is and there's a new guy calling plays?
Yeah, I think you're just looking for development right now because I think, it depends. Like, if Cam Rising can theoretically come back for another year with this injury again, which is crazy. He gets another year, but I think you're just looking for development from what you hope to be your quarterback of the future in Isaac Wilson, who is a very talented kid coming out of high school, but obviously is experiencing some growing pains right now, as any freshman should be expected to experience, right, with a kid like who's as young as him. So you're just looking for development out of Isaac Wilson right now. And, you could root for, obviously, wins and losses. Wins and losses are the most important stat. But honestly, if I'm a Utah fan, I'm looking for a guy that I can trust to be the quarterback of the future and not have to go into the transfer portal and bring in another quarterback right now. So that's really what I'm looking for most as a Utah fan, is just to get Isaac Wilson ready for next season and beyond, honestly, rather than just, simply being as good as you can this year.
So give me your thoughts on the potential of what we may see tomorrow against Houston. It's odd because if you do the who played who game, Houston beat TCU, who just came in town and beat Utah. And Houston put, 30 points on TCU, a TCU defense that Utah could only find 7 against. So, look, Utah's a favorite. It's only 4 points. If you told me that Utah-Houston would be a 4-point spread to start the season, I told you that you'd be nuts. Houston can't stop the run. Utah can run the football pretty well. So, look, if this is another situation, Max, where in the fourth quarter it's like 10-6, and we're sweating this out, and they ultimately win a close one, I still think fans around here are going to be pretty disappointed. But, obviously right now with the way things are, you can't guarantee much of anything. What would a real actual win, outside of just squeaking out a win, what would a good win, a good performance look like for Utah tomorrow in Houston?
I think just take care of business, honestly. Houston, I would say, is one of the worst teams in the Power Four, honestly, not even just the Big 12. So I think just take care of business against Houston. They've had a lot of struggles this year. And like I said, I don't really love what Houston's shown this year at all. I know, they beat TCU, like you said, but Houston still, to me, is like a 3-9 football team, in my opinion. So take care of business in that game. And like I said, that's one of the few games Utah has left on their schedule that I think they'll actually, should be the favorite in, honestly. So, take care of business tomorrow to get one step closer to at least making a bowl game. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is seeing if Utah can do that.
Like I said, everything that Coach Witt wants his football team to be, Kalani Sitake has been able to get his football team to be just that every single week. Now, I still am wondering what a game looks like where there isn't something that's a little bit out of the ordinary that will occur. Like, I don't do the whole, like, they're super lucky. They're 7-0, man. Like, it is what it is, 7-0. They've answered every single question that's been thrown at them. They've been able to win games in a myriad of ways defensively at SMU. That looks like a great win now. And they've been able to put, 41 on a team like Arizona, 38 on a team like OK State. They've had last-minute comebacks. They've had special teams touchdowns. They've had pick sixes. They've had scoop and scores. They've had everything that you need to win football games, regardless of what you think. As far as some of the opportunistic situations they've found themselves in, I do wonder what it looks like for an entire game if it's simply just not winning the turnover battle and it's just football head-to-head. They're a dog, Max, in Orlando. UCF is getting 2 in the hook. They're a 2.5-point favorite over BYU. It's an afternoon kick. It's a 3-time zone travel game, and that can be problematic. Trap game potential for BYU, or do you think they keep their undefeated season rolling coming up tomorrow afternoon?
I think they keep it rolling. I honestly have no idea why they're underdogs going into that game. I mean, UCF, I think, is not even making a bowl game this year. And you talk about a BYU team that's 7-0 right now. I really, really don't understand. That to me is the most perplexing spread, maybe the entire season right now. I really don't understand that spread at all. So, yeah, I think BYU. It is a cross country road trip, so you gotta keep an eye on that. And UCF's run game is pretty good, but BYU's run D has been pretty relatively sound this year. I think BYU takes care of business in that game. I really don't understand how UCF's a favorite in that game.
Tell me what you made of BYU's late game comeback, really late at night last Friday night. And I stayed up, watched the whole thing, and, OK State goes up with that late touchdown about 1:15. I'm like, all right, well, good run. And then magic happens, like BYU fans like to say. How'd you digest that BYU OK State game?
Yeah, listen, a lot of people are trying to use that to discredit BYU. I mean, listen, they pulled it out, right? I mean, you see Miami right now. I mean, they're pulling out games like this for the last month or so. So anyone who's trying to use that to discredit BYU, listen, close games are a part of football, right? Every team, no matter how good you are going to have close games. You can't just blow out everyone the whole season, right? So BYU keeps winning these games. They've had their own blowouts this year as well, so it's not like they're winning every game close. I think it was really impressive that I was with you. I thought it was over after Oklahoma State scored the go-ahead touchdown, but then Jake Retzlaff led them right down the field, and credit to him. I think he's the most improved quarterback in college football this year, I think by a good bit, honestly. So credit to him, and he kept the undefeated season alive right there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you every step of the way when it comes to giving this team, as the kids would say, their flowers, because I'm hip and I have a 23-year-old. He teaches me what to say now. And so I'm on board, and we're fans of Kalani up here. I mean, he was the defensive coordinator up here where we do radio right by the campus of the University of Utah. A-Rod, Jay Hill, like they're all good dudes. We're all happy for their success. I do wonder though, if I could be irresponsible as a Utah Sports Talk radio host for a moment, if BYU and Utah played tomorrow neutral field, what do you think would happen?
I think BYU would win. If Cam Rising was on the field, maybe it'd be a different story. A healthy Cam Rising was on the field, maybe it'd be a different story. But I think Utah's so banged up right now. You just lost your offensive coordinator as well. So the coaching staff's kind of in disarray, which I never thought I would say about a Utah coaching staff. I think BYU is just playing very fundamentally sound football in all three phases right now, and I don't think you can say the same thing about Utah. So I think BYU would win. But if it was fully healthy Utah, full strength Utah, maybe be a lot closer, but I would favor BYU on our neutral field right now.
Is there a path? Because I was looking at some of the FPI stuff and just some of the odds and the percentages, and there are still some places that have Iowa State as the favorite and then K-State as the second most likely Big 12 champ and Brigham Young third. There are other places that have that flipped. Is there a chance that BYU, or I guess I should expand it and just say any other team in the Big 12, is there a chance this could be a two-team conference, or do you have to Do you have to win the conference championship to get an invite to the CFP?
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely think, obviously, you get in if you win the conference. I think if you're an 11-1 team and you get into the conference title game and then you lose, then maybe they'll forgive you and give you a bid as an 11-2 team. I don't think a 10-2 team will get in from the Big 12. At least I don't think so. I think we'll have enough schools from the SEC and the Big 10 to put in over BYU, or not any Big 12 school that has 2 losses. So, yeah, I don't know if a 10-2 team will get in, but probably an 11-1 team, even if they lose the conference title game, they probably would be able to get in. But even that, I'm not entirely sure of either.
Who would you continue to say lives in the cul-de-sac of teams that are still in the hunt and can legitimately win the Big 12 championship? We have 9 teams with 2 losses or fewer, 6 with 1 loss or fewer, and then 2, of course, clean with BYU and Iowa State. How many of these teams does Max Chadwick still think can win the Big 12?
Yeah, I think there's the big 3, right, of Kansas State, BYU, and Iowa State. Those are the 3 pretty clear favorites right now. I would put Colorado in that mix. I'm not ruling it out. Now, they do have to win out pretty much in order to do that, but they have a serious talent on that team, and I think they could beat anyone on any given night, honestly. They almost beat Kansas State. I mean, they really should have won that game. If Travis Hunter didn't get hurt, I mean, they probably would have won that game, honestly. So I put Colorado as the 4th team in that. And then maybe you could talk me into Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati has had a really good year, but I don't really think they're a legitimate contender. But we'll see in that game tomorrow night against Colorado. That's actually a big game for the Big 12. But for me, the Big 4 is Kansas State, BYU, Iowa State, and Colorado. And honestly, I think Kansas State, BYU, and Iowa State have a much better chance of winning it than Colorado does right now.
Before I set you loose, Max, and we'll end on this, but kind of a sneaky big game tonight, but not for those of us around here that follow the Mountain West because of our Aggies, our friends up north. Boise State, UNLV. Boise is a favorite, even though that's in Vegas. First of all, I want to see if you think Boise gets it done tonight, then follow it up with how good do you think they are, and are they getting enough attention for what they've done so far?
Yeah, I think they're ranked relatively where I would put them right now. So I think they're getting enough love. And I actually picked UNLV to win this game tonight. I hate picking against Ashton Ginty. We actually interviewed him preseason. He's an awesome kid, even better kid than he is a football player, which is saying a lot, honestly. I do think UNLV wins, though. It's at UNLV. That crowd will be really, really good. They have the better quarterback, in my opinion, in Hajj Malik-Williams. And I think UNLV has the better defense in this game as well. Again, I hate picking against Ashton Ginty, and he very easily could become Superman like he's been all year and lead them to victory. But I am going to give a slight advantage to UNLV, but I do think it'll be an instant classic tonight. It should come down to the final seconds, honestly.
Max, thanks for the time, man. Enjoy the football this weekend, and we'll get you on soon.
Appreciate it.
All right, Max Chadwick. He's college football analyst for Pro Football Focus. He hosts their Pro Football Focus college football show. You can get him on Twitter at CFB. Max Chadwick is where you find him. We're going to bring in Ryan from the Dish Pros real quick. Then I'll get to my guy, Koo. Coming up on the other side, Chris Comrade is going to stop by. So a little more college football with CK. We'll bounce around. We'll do a little RSL. If you missed Kurt Schmidt from earlier, really good stuff to get you ready for the RSL match next Tuesday as they're high speed ahead to the MLS Cup playoffs. Howard Beck, NBA Daily Assist, was phenomenal today. So if you missed that, check out the podcast page. Then Jordan Wynn stopped by, and we got a lot to do before we get out of here at 6. But we're live today at Tim Dolly Infinity, 4594 South State Street. And my guy Koo Kim stops by once again. All right, I want to give you a chance to kind of expand on what you were saying before. Can you hear me?
Nope.
He can't. He cannot hear me. All right. Well, that's a problem. You know what? Take the headset off and then just talk into the microphone. Are you good now?
I'm good now, yeah.
Okay. There we go.
We are.
There we go. Live remotes. Never a dull moment. Luckily, Shay is here. All right. You were in the middle of explaining kind of your approach to customer service with like former employees before we dropped. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of explain that again.
Yeah, salesmen, they come and go, but it always makes me sad when they leave and they come back with their parents or a sibling feeling like they have to be there to babysit the car deal to make sure that they're getting a good deal,
to
right?
like protect them in a way,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Because they feel like, oh, the dealership will do this, the dealership will do that. But my biggest goal in hiring a salesperson and training them, and is one, to make them successful, but two, making them feel like, look, go see Koo. He'll handle everything for you. It'll be easy. or send their parents and come to a Tim Daly store knowing that they're going to be well taken care of, That's and if I can feel like I can do that with the salespeople, I'll feel like I've done my job.
Natural follow-up, have you found that to be the case? Has that actually been able to work for you?
Yes,
Good,
it has.
Good. Well, then your approach is working.
Right. And the other thing I was telling Spence is, when friends will ask me, hey, I want to buy a car, can you help me out? What day you want to come in? On Saturday? And if they say Saturday, I say, look, come in on Monday, unless you want me to make money off you.
Come in during the week.
Yeah, because the worst thing you want to hear from any salesperson is, yeah, come on down, we'll take care of you. You don't want to hear that. You want to hear, don't come in on Saturday, come in on Monday, and I can really help you out.
Well, I think probably, Koo, it's because people have had bad experiences with car sales. That's why the cliche exists. Like, oh, he's like a used car salesman.
Right.
So you're probably just trying to flip that around. Like, if you've had a bad experience, don't lump us in with everybody else.
Right. And that's the other thing I try to, indoctrinate with our salespeople is, look, you may have heard that car salespeople or this job is one of the lowest jobs you can have. But the truth is, it's one of the hardest jobs you can ever have, right? It's the hardest job you can ever do. And if you can make it look easy, then that's when you know you're a pro.
Mm-hmm. And if you approach it with honesty and integrity and you're not trying to get over on your customers like you guys do here, at Tim Daly.
Yeah. That's the biggest, we all want to go home and sleep at night and sleep well. That's my biggest approach.
And so talk about, kind of the way you describe it, you kind of put your arm around them when they come in.
Yeah.
And so talk about the customer experience, what people can expect when they come out here.
Well, I want them to feel like, like there's full transparency. I want them to feel like they're getting a great deal. And I want them to feel like, they can come back. Because the biggest thing is I want retention. I want customers to come back here and do their service here and not feel like, and I want referrals. I want people to come here because of the referrals, right? Because in any situation when we're in a meeting or in corporate environments, my biggest goal is I always try to end up every statement with volume. I care more about volume than the actual money we're making on each car deal, right? Some dealerships will focus on how much you're making on each individual car deal. Here, my approach is volume. That's all I care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like it. It's a good approach. And as I referenced, I think you called them fanboys. I have a Infiniti fanboy in my family. As my uncle, his entire life, he bought his first Infiniti, I think in his late 20s. And now as he's aged, he's in his late 60s. It's all he's driven for 40 years, basically.
Yeah.
So what is it about Infiniti that seems to breed this type of loyalty?
I think it's the truth is, from what I've talked to customers about this, it's the fact that they feel like it's a well-built product. They feel like it's the price point is better than some of these other competitors, like especially BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, right?
Even Audi, in a way.
Even yeah. And so when they come and look at these Infinitis, they actually get really, really surprised at how many features you get, and on top of that, with the forever warranty, it's like it's a no-brainer. And the truth is, I've worked for a bunch of dealerships, but this Infiniti QX80 is probably one of my favorite cars I've ever even driven. So if anything, just come down and drive the car. You'll see that it has features that we don't even know about, right? Mm-hmm. It'll have more features than some of these other third-row SUVs that you're looking at, too. And do yourself a service by driving this QX80.
And the technology, again, because I just got a car. I didn't know you were here, so I would have called you first, but I just got a new car. And it's the first time I've had a new automobile in maybe 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And I'm a golfer, right? So they say you need new golf clubs because of the technology. It changes. Or a new iPhone, whatever it is. When we had our phones, when we were back in college together, there were Nokia flip phones. And now it does everything, with the way things innovate. The new technology in new cars, if you haven't had a new car in quite some time, it blows you away when you drive a new car because the technology has changed a lot, yeah?
Yeah, the biggest thing in these QX80s, they have this Pro Pilot Assist 2.1 where the vehicles, they drive themselves. As long as the vehicle is mapped and GPS, you can actually take your hands off the steering wheel, right? With the Pro Pilot Assist, you can just turn on your signal, and it'll merge lanes into the lane over whichever way you direct it by itself, right? The only thing that it asks for you to do is to keep your eyes on the road. As soon as you put your head down, it'll sense that your head is lowered, and it'll say, hey, put your eyes on the road, right?
Yeah, we don't want you sleeping driving the car.
No.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe this technology is even available on these cars.
All right, last thing, and I'll set you loose after this. The forever warranty, you've already outlined it a couple of times. Let's hear about it again because it seems like a pretty unique feature to me.
Right. It's something that we actually instated a couple of years ago, but it's something that brings customers back here, and it's actually a good closing tool for us to give customers the assurance that each vehicle that we sell that qualifies will have the forever warranty. Basically, for the life of the time that you own the vehicle, the powertrain is going to be covered. Every component of it will be covered. In fact, we had someone that traded in their QX80 as a 2016, had 155,000 miles, put a $15,000 engine in it, and now they're trading it in.
Nice. Oh, so that part works as well. So
Right.
we'll chat again, man. Thanks again for having us out.
All righty.
All right, my guy Koo Kim, he's the GM out here, and out here is Tim Daly Infinity, which is 4594 South State Street. Yeah, check out the forever warranty, the 0.9 APR, and these 2025 QX80s are really nice. So come on by and say hello. All right, it is a Friday, so that means coming up on the other side, Chris Comrani joins us. Then we'll launch into the 5 o'clock hour of the program, all before we say goodnight at 6 o'clock, right here on ESPN 700. All right, we're live today out and about at Tim Dolly Infinity. It's 4594 South State Street. Happy Friday to you. We've got a busy 5 o'clock hour coming up. I want to be clear, my heart is in Los Angeles, but I don't know how many of you want to talk baseball. All I know is that the Yankees and Dodgers will get rolling at 6:08 Mountain Time, and we have 15-year-olds that don't know what it's like to see the Yankees win a World Series. It's a crime that needs to be rectified, and I hope it starts tonight. Who knows where our next conversation will go, because you never know on a Friday afternoon when Chris Comrani stops by. All right, 45th South, 60 degrees, probably too cold and too far for the gearless bike, yes?
Yes. I was making dinner very early with my son, and the kitchen is currently a heaping mess. But we were out reveling in the sunshine earlier. We have to soak it up. It is dwindling, and it's going to vanish before we know it.
You were making dinner earlier with your – it's 4:30.
I started making it early.
Oh, okay. I was going to say early bird special. You're not that old. What does Leo do to help you make dinner? He's not old enough to participate yet.
He screams. He whines. He has like a fake play knife that doesn't cut anything, so he gets frustrated when Dad is cutting through things, but he's not. It's fun for a little while, and for a little while I mean in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, where to start today? Why don't we do a little on the lads, and then we'll move over to a little football first and foremost. So, six games without a loss, 6 games undefeated into the postseason. Obviously, that's good. I don't know that the form is great, though. So I think there's a little bit of excitement/trepidation as RSL starts their playoff journey coming up next Tuesday. So just from a general standpoint, what do you make of where we're at with the club prior to Game 1 against Minnesota next Tuesday?
Yeah, still a work in progress. Still trying to figure out who they are. I think I'm very interested to see what 11 Pablo strolls out on Tuesday in the cold and rain. I don't know if it's going to be the same 11 that started against Vancouver last weekend. I guess I will say the takeaway right now is it's pretty insane that RSL center back depth is as porous and thin as it is, regardless of the injuries. The fact that they are where they are now with the injuries and suspension is not ideal. And then I'll say my secondary take right now is, man, Diego Luna's had a hell of a year, and it really will potentially spur on this club that now that he's, caught fire the last few weeks, because offensively and in the attack, there just isn't a lot going right now other than him. So he's been a very big lone bright spot toward the end of the season.
So let's talk about the back line. And you referenced we will not see the same 11 that we saw against Vancouver, and we certainly will not, because Philip Quinton is out for at least a couple of weeks with a bad hamstring. Brian Vera spits on people, so he's not allowed to play soccer. Marcelo Silva is not fit. Bodie Hidalgo is hurt. Eric Holt, I don't think, is part of the equation. So the solution, CK, last week after Quinton goes down was Emeka Anelli, shout out Nate Bench, moves to right back. And Javane Brown moves centralized next to Glad with Katranis out left. So Emeka, I think I read, played 16 games at right back last year. And again, shout out Nate Bench. He's capable of playing multiple positions. Nelson came into Emeka's spot next to Ojeda. Do you think that's what we'll see, at least as far as the back line goes, coming up on Tuesday?
I would think so. And remember, RSL scouted Emeka as a right back before he made the rightful transition to his central midfield position. But right now,
shout out Nate Bench.
The things right now at RSL are they're thin. Things aren't great from a health standpoint and from an availability standpoint. It's great that RSL has home field advantage during this 3-game ridiculous first round ordeal, whatever we're calling it these days. But taking, I think, arguably your best defensive midfielder and having to put him at right back because you're so thin at center back is not ideal. I know Javane Brown has played games at center back in the past, but he hasn't played a bunch there with RSL. I think on his only appearances outside of, moving over the other night when he was playing against Vancouver was primarily been at right back. So for a team that's been leaky quite a bit throughout 2024, I would say that things are dire, but who knows? I mean, it's everybody rolls with the cliche and the assumption that things tighten up in the postseason. You would hope for RSL's sake that their defense tightens up as well.
So yesterday, John Paul painted the picture of Brian Vera as Draymond Green.
Oh, I was listening.
So who is Jordan Poole?
Nailed it.
Who is Jordan Poole? Because ultimately I landed on Rubio Rubin because like the young good player is Diego, but he's better than Jordan Poole. Like if it was 2005, it would be Jamie Watson. But is there a Jordan Poole on the roster?
I can't come close to perfecting the performance art that you and JP put on when you're in the same room together. I guess Rubin is a good call because he was here and now he's gone. But you could also, take a handful of players that were here and are now gone. But the Draymond comp was very good. I mean, if we're looking for that crosstalk crossover, true sports radio hot take, JP provided it for us, no doubt.
He did, and Diego Luna as Clayton Keller feels right, doesn't it?
If I knew who Clayton Keller was, then yes.
Utah Hockey Club. He's like the best player for the hockey club. He scores goals, he gets assists, and he's young, like Diego.
Okay.
All right.
Forgive me for I have not seen much, if not any, of Utah Hockey Club so far.
Yeah, I will not ask you about their penalty kills issues. You're a father. You don't have time for this. So let's move up past the back four and hone in on what we could see up front where, again, if Emeka Nelly, shout out Nate Bench, goes to the right back position and ultimately Nelson steps in there and Ojeda, who's been great, probably needs to be talked about more over the past little bit, is manning that spot. Last game we saw Diego out wide right, which is rare, and Diego came on the show this week and basically said, well, wherever he starts me, I'm going to be centralized because that's the way he plays. To your point, he's probably in the best form of any player right now. I understand why Crooks is central, and he is a connector in a way that maybe I don't fully get, but Diego was out left, and then Chicho was up top. We have Lachlan. We have Dominic Markzuk, who I think probably will start and be out right, and my guess is Diego's out left, and Diego comes centralized, and Chicho stays up top. That's my guess. What do you think?
I think it'll come down to whether or not Pablo wants to start Crooks or Diego centrally. I think Diego will man his typical spot, and he's right, like he said on your show earlier this week. He kind of has carte blanche to kind of go where he wants as long as he stays within the framework of what Pablo needs from him defensively as well. It's going to boil down to what kind of game plan Pablo wants from the start and what he wants to plan for come substitution-wise. But you also have to think of this as a series. Like, this is not a one-off. So if it was a one-off, maybe Pablo thinks differently. Whether he goes Crooks or Diogo centrally, we'll wait and see. But just because one starts in game one in Sandy doesn't mean that that same player that starts centrally in game one will start game two in Minneapolis. So there's lots of, tweaks that will be necessary from both sides. All I know is that, Diego Luna has to carry the load right now, and that's asking a lot of a very young, talented player. And they really, really poorly need Chicho Arango to get off the schneid as soon as possible.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. I mean, how much of this, and we had Kurt on a little bit earlier, you can say what you want about Gomez, but when Andres was out on that side, those two formed a pretty dangerous partnership. And, a lot of people painted Andres as someone who was only looking for his own, but there were several interchanges with he and Chicho that led to opportunities. Look, Andres was responsible for 22 goals in 23 games. That's not nothing. And Chicho hasn't been near as effective since he's been around. There's also the suspension. There's acclimating himself to new teammates. What do you attribute the struggles to most?
Well, you bring up Andres. I think one thing that this team misses now is Andres is a guy that could run away from people with the ball at his feet, and RSL just doesn't really have that anymore. They have very talented technical players, but Andres had a component of his game and speed that I don't think we've ever really seen any RSL player have at that level. Like to combine his ability on the ball and his nose for goal, plus the fact that he was faster than everyone else on the field, that made him really hard to defend, and it basically bent back lines to kind of shape themselves towards Andres, which would then open things up for Chicho centrally. I would say it's a plethora of everything. Basically, it's everything kind of going wrong at one time. It's the suspension, it's Andres leaving, it's the injury, it's getting used to new teammates, it's a striker being in his head. It's like, it's hard, man. Like, striker is, it's like the wide receiver position. I mean, I'm going to go full John Paul. Like, you are the guy who's asked to deliver, and you're going to have a personality, and you have the flair for the dramatic, and you are a guy that puts butts in the seats. And when you're not delivering at the clip that you were, which was at the time a historic rate, I mean, 17 goals in whatever it was, like 11 matches or whatever. Trey's going to text me and correct me, but it was absurd, man. Like, we were thought like maybe RSL will not only have its new all-time single-season goal scorer, but maybe they're going to have a guy who's going to score 30 goals in a year. Obviously, that didn't happen. But that being said, it's better to have a guy who's waiting to bust, that streak or that cold streak rather than not having him at all. So I think the fact that he's a guy that's been there before, he's, played in really meaningful games with LAFC in the MLS Cup playoffs. He's done it with RSL. All he needs to see is the ball hit the back of the net, and things, I think, would change dramatically for RSL.
As one of the esteemed winners of Utah Sports Writer of the Year, I know you're all about the individual awards, and so I want to move over into that category real quick. Ziggy Schmidt, MLS Coach of the Year finalist. Chris Armas, Colorado. Don't really get it. They've been bad as of late. And the Tata Martino story feels a little bit Phil Jackson-y to me with Shaq and Kobe, but, whatever. Wilfred Nancy, Columbus Crew. Not going to tell you I've been smashing Crew tape. But should Pablo have been on this list based off of preseason expectations?
No. I think if RSL gets a top 2 seed out west and doesn't really kind of pitter to the end, I think he's in the running. But this team was pretty bad for a while, and I think they were lucky that the West, as it usually does, cannibalized itself and didn't allow anybody to really leapfrog them. I think it's going to be Wilfred Nancy as a guy who does smash Crew tape. I think they are the most aesthetically pleasing team to watch in MLS, and that's saying something considering Miami has a bunch of guys. But I will correct you. There is one correction needed. I've never won the Utah Sports Writer of the Year. I've only been nominated. So
erroneous. Erroneous. I won't stand for that. We need. How do we get this? Because look, man, you need one of those trophies on your mantle.
I need to put it behind my the Zoom background, like all those people do for interviews and stuff. Yeah, I'm with you.
That's getting so bad, by the way. Like, it's such a thirst trap where it's like, oh, you have a cool old school Nintendo and a Mike Tyson book, and there's your Sports Writer of the Year. Like, it started during COVID, and now it's just like, do you really listen to Wu-Tang, Jeff Passan, or do you just have the record behind you? Like, Jeff Passan's not smashing 90s hip hop. He just wants to look cool. It's ridiculous.
I think he might be. I think you might have to get him on and ask him. I think if you're going to go as far as to say like you are a Wu-Tang, I don't think you can just be a surface level Wu-Tang fan, because you don't go out and find Wu-Tang stuff anymore. This is not 1998. You can't go to Spencer's bookstore and find a cool, Wu-Tang t-shirt or a, whatever. Like, that stuff is hard to come by. But yes, I'm with you. It is kind of exhausting. Unfortunately for me, the background at my desk is just a huge window, so it's just always backlit. So there's a reason why I prefer not to get on video for anybody.
My Zoom setup's the same. Jeff Passan doesn't listen to Wu-Tang. He has like Gin Blossom vibes. Like, he's not, right? I don't think Jeff
Goo Goo
Passan.
Dolls?
Maybe. Yes. Slide, underrated tune. We can move on. All right, Chris, since you and I last spoke, University of Utah has a new play caller. Andy Ludwig has stepped aside, and Mike Bajakian is in. Obviously, Coach Ludwig's entire resume speaks for itself, but it's also two things can be true. We're learning this as a society. It's so fun. it's fine to say that it hasn't been good enough, and it hasn't been good enough for a while, not just a few weeks, if we're honest. So your take on the happenings up on the hill and what you think it looks like coming up tomorrow.
I was stunned, honestly. I did not see this coming. Like, this is a guy who came back to Utah and said he planned on, making this his last stop as an offensive coordinator. It might have been, now that he decided to resign. But I think there were interviews with Kyle over the years that said, Kyle said, oh, Andy's going to be my last OC as well. And there's a reason why he brought him back. So I was stunned to see that happen. I don't know how much a guy like Andy leaving midseason changes anything for the better, to be honest with you. Based on all of my conversations with really smart players over the years since Andy came back, everybody speaks glowingly of the guy. When Britton Covey was out for extended period of time with his knee, he spent every game day that he could up in the booth with Andy and just raved about it. Cam did the same thing when he had to sit in red shirt. These are, I don't know. It seems like a reach to me, man. This seems like a very un-Kyle move. I know for a long time that Kyle was trying to find the right offensive play caller to coincide with his beliefs on defense. I think there was 9 and 11 years at one point before Andy came back. So this is not new. You joke that there are 15-year-olds that have never seen a Yankees win a World Series. There are 15-year-olds in this market that have never seen Utah be bad until last year too. So it's interesting that you think of, there are kids that have, been raised on Utah football that are just used to crazy, mighty expectations that have been met. Obviously they were not met the last couple of years. So I don't know what Andy leaving does for this team in the short term. To be honest with you, I really don't. You can make the argument that this team was not prepared for Cam to go down again, and that is an absolute fair critique. And if you look at the quarterbacks that Andy and his staff recruited over the years, it is not that impressive. Nate Johnson, Brandon Rose, Peter Costelli, 2 portal guys were Charlie Brewer and Jake Bentley. So Brandon Rose is the only one that we don't really have a definitive answer on. Nate's gone. I don't know where Peter Costelli is. Charlie and Jake didn't work out. Obviously, he had Tyler and he had Cam, and when those guys were healthy, Utah was among the best teams in the Pac-12 and the country. But yeah, I was stunned to see it, Spence. I don't know if Mike Bajakian makes Isaac Wilson a better quarterback in the final 5 games or whatever they have in the regular season. I really don't.
The CK truth bomb on a Friday, man. So can we be as reductive? And folks these days love the reductive statements. It tends to describe an entire persona of a certain group of people. Can we be as reductive as saying simply it would be different if Cameron Rising had been healthy last year and this year? Can we be that reductive?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Are we allowed to? I don't know. You tell me. I feel like this is a trap question.
Well, no, it's not a trap question because it does feel like I could honestly. The thing is, I do 4 hours of this Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 live every day Mountain Time. You know this, but I feel like I could really crack the mic and say, guys, if Cameron Rising was under center last year and this year, everything would be different, and then sign off. But I would have 3 hours and 58 minutes left, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out whether or not it is that simple, or are there other fair critiques?
Well, if we're talking about this year specifically, and the sample size was tremendously small, but you talk about a quarter and a half against SUU where Cam looked every bit of his old self and the offense was just basically running riot. And then to me, maybe the bigger deal was that first half against Baylor where the offense looked really, really good. And if Cam doesn't get shoved into the Gatorade station, maybe they're up 35-0 at halftime or 34-0 at halftime. And it looked like it could be what it was, but the nature of this sport, man, we talk about this ad nauseum, the quarterback is the most important position on the team. So if you don't have an adequate plan B or plan C for when the guy that you are riding with, who always gets hurt once again, unfortunately, things are not going to look the same. And that's just the plain reality. And it is also easy to look at, previous seasons and say Brant Keithy was this guy 3 years ago, or Dorian Singer was this guy at Arizona 3 years ago. But like, it's easy to like look at that and paint it as a picture that can all come together, but it has to come together, and it hasn't. It's just kind of it's a Picasso right now. It's just kind of all over the place, and I just don't really, and not a good Picasso, a bad Picasso. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
You're an art critic like me. Like, I it was always going to be hard for this team to ride with three aging, injured veterans at three of the most important positions on the offensive side of the ball. And when the most important one got hurt 2 games in, and then again, 5 or 6 games in, everything got thrown into flux. And it's not fair to necessarily critique Isaac Wilson because he's an 18-year-old kid who enrolled in April and got used to the terminology of a very complex Andy Ludwig playbook that so many quarterbacks have said will hopefully prepare them for the NFL. But Isaac Wilson is a 18-year-old true freshman quarterback leading a team now that had expectations of being in the college football playoff. And it's unfortunate, but he just doesn't look ready because he's so young. And it is so difficult for any true freshman at any program in the country to step in and take the reins of a program that has the expectations like they do at Utah. I just feel like here we just assumed that, everything would just kind of, be fine if Cam got hurt again. But like, no, man, like it is hard. It is so hard to get to be really good at any position, especially at quarterback, especially in an offense as complex as Andy's. Now that Andy is gone, maybe Mike Bajakian, distills things down for Isaac and makes it easier for him and gives him 20 to 25 plays. But still, like, does that make Utah like the team that it wanted to be coming into the season? No, that dream is dashed. And Utah has to figure out what its ceiling is over the next 2 months. Because honestly, Spence, if they lose tomorrow, there's a chance this team doesn't make a bowl game, which is insane to think about.
And you're not the first person that I've heard say that, which continues to just blow my mind based off of what we were all expecting. But let's move over to tomorrow. Because look, and maybe based off of, we had Jordan Wynn on earlier, and it's clear that he's down. Everyone's down on the group. So I'm sure the mission is just go get a win no matter what. But look, man, like Houston, according to many metrics, is one of the worst P4 teams, not one of the worst Big 12 teams, one of the worst, P4 teams. And if it's the fourth quarter tomorrow and it's like 13-6 and Utah somehow pulls a rabbit out of where and wins by like a point, I know it's a win and that's all that matters, but I don't think that's going to do a whole lot for a fan base that I feel as a collective is as like disenfranchised with this football team as they have been in years.
Well, and this goes back to the expectations and whether they were realistic or not, Spence. Honestly,
fair. Yeah, fair.
Like even if Cam doesn't get hurt, if Utah is 6-1 right now or 5 and what is their record right now? They're 4-3, right? Yeah. So they've lost 3 in a row. If Utah's 6-1 or 5-2 right now, and they still don't look that good, like there's also a possibility in that realm of existence that they might not make the playoff then. And I understand, but we are in this multiverse now where everything has gone wrong. But again, that is life as like a football fan and life as a football player. So does Utah need to go down to Houston and win? Yes. Do they have the superior talent? Yeah. But as we've seen, Utah's lost a team that had lost to teams this year where they have less talent. Like they're more talented than TCU, hands down. They did not play well. So that makes you ask questions like if they struggle tomorrow night at Houston, then I think there are bigger questions to ask of why this team is underperforming at a level that nobody really ever saw coming.
All right, final thing, I'll set you loose on this. It's a different story, in my opinion, for BYU because to me, they hit the road as an underdog. They're traveling 3 time zones. So for me, Utah needs to go get right. They need to make a statement. They need to go thump them. BYU just needs to get out of the happiest place on earth with, a nice little mermaid ice cream cone and just a win, no matter what. By 1 point, miracle, pick 6. Just keep this train on track. You are an underdog on the road. What do you think happens in Orlando tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to face a team that's going to run the ball 60 times, and they have one of the best running backs in the country. And this true freshman quarterback that came in does not throw the ball very well at all, but he's a hell of a runner. So Jay Hill's defense will have its hands full for 4 quarters on the ground. I think to me it's going to be if Jake Retzloff and that BYU offense can give the BYU defense like the amount of time needed to rest, because those really long methodical drives where a team that knows that it can run the ball against you will drain a defense. And I know BYU's defense has been opportunistic and good this year, but against a rushing attack like that, it will be tough. I mean, UCF should have beat the number 10 team in the country last week on the road, but they blew it at Iowa State. So this is a team, I think Kalani said like they're the best 3 and 4 team in the country right now, and he's probably right. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very difficult game. But man, if they win that game and they are 8-0 with a bye week before that Utah game, that game on November 9th will be absolutely bonkers.
Are we taking tracks to the stadium on Tuesday?
My man, the weather does not look inviting. We're gonna have to discuss this off air.
All right, man. Have a good weekend. Give Leo a high five.
Appreciate you.
All right, Chris Comrani from The Athletic. Before we catch a break, we're live today out here with our good friends at Tim Daly Infinity. Koo Kim, the head honcho, the GM. The classy dresser, by the way. Our sales manager told me to look at your ring. What's the ring she was so impressed about?
So this, little backstory on this is actually my dad's pinky ring.
Oh, nice.
It's a Versace pinky ring I use as my wedding ring.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Yeah, she was very impressed. She's very stylish in a way I'm not. I just wear comfortable clothes. But tell me, Koo, about this QX80. I just saw a couple looking at it, and obviously the snow's about to fall. It's an SUV. What your listeners know? Well,
the QX80, it's Infinity's flagship car. It's one of the vehicles that they revamped to actually bring people back to the brand, right? And they actually consider it a halo vehicle. So this vehicle just being advertised by itself has allowed people to, I guess, re-engage with Infinity. Now they're buying the QX60s, they're buying the QX55s, QX50s. But, you know, if you're really looking at a luxury vehicle, a third-row SUV, you got to do yourself a favor and drive this car. And, you know, it may sound cliche, but it's true. Like, if I was comparing this to a Lexus, I'd buy the QX80 over the Lexus. I'd buy it over a Toyota. I'd buy it over BMW or Mercedes. In fact, they say the biggest competitor is going to be Lincoln and Cadillac, but I wouldn't even compare this car to a Lincoln or a Cadillac. So reliability is going to be better than those other cars too, regardless, maybe not the Toyota and the Lexus, but the other thing too is people are, from what I've seen, they're being driven away from the Lexus and Toyota brand because they feel like the reliability has actually gone down. That's what I've heard from these customers. So if you're going to look at a third-row SUV, come look at the QX80.
Tell me this, because as we've talked about all day, my uncle is what you call a fanboy, an Infinity fanboy, Infinity guy for life. And he always talks about how it's a true luxury brand, but the price points of Infinities compared to what we all have in our minds as luxury brands are just simply a lot better. I mean, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, if you look at the price points between Lincoln and Cadillac, you'll see that our price point is about 10 grand less than that.
10 grand.
Right.
Yeah.
So as far as price point, we Infinity made sure that they were going to be competitive against those other brands.
Okay, well, there you go. That's one way to do it. Let's reset your kind of your ethos as far as customer service goes. Why you feel like you're different out here?
Well, you know, being the only Infinity brand out here in this region or in Utah, I just know that ultimately I want customers to come back here. I don't ever want to get a negative review on my Google, on our Google account, right? I don't want to ever see my name associated with any kind of bad review, right? And that's kind of what I pride myself on. I always think about, you know, like, is this going to result in a bad review in me or the dealership? Because, you know, we have to represent Tim and the Infinity brand, and that's what we're, you know, in my career in the car business, I always try to boil everything down to one little statement. You know, like, how would I feel about this? Or, you know, what's my number one goal in this scenario when I leave work? To make sure that I feel good about what I'm doing here. Make sure my salesmen are being successful and are successful, right? Because if you think about it too much, it just gets too complicated to do anything, right? Selling a car or delivering a car. But if you boil it down to like, here's an example. If a salesman says, hey, can I let this customer take this overnight? Do they have insurance? Let me go check. Then I ask them, hey, why don't you let them take your car? Wait, they don't have insurance. I'm like, then why would you ask us to take this? Yeah. Again, I'm going off on another tangent.
No, you're good.
You do a good job at that.
No, it's important for people to know what you do. That's why you have me here, so we can get to know your business. I'm cool with it. Last thing, Forever Warranty. It sounds nice as a marketing cliche, but it actually means the way it sounds for you guys, yeah?
It's the real deal. We actually had a meeting today about whether or not that marketing strategy is working, and we all voted to keep that in place, right?
Nice.
Because we felt like some of the ether was getting was wearing down, but I think we're going to revamp it, remarket it, promote it a lot more. But the Forever Warranty is the real deal. We had somebody, just like I was saying earlier, trade in a car that we put a $15,000 engine in, so.
Yeah, that's great. Before I set you loose, what's the best way to get the process started? Just pop in, go to the website, call. Like, what would you recommend?
Either one. Like I said, the mantra here is to make sure you rub the person's back. Come on down here if you want to. Set up an appointment if you want to. Do everything over the internet if you want to. Do everything over the phone if you want to, right? Well, and request to have a car delivered to your house. We don't care. We just want to make sure that the process is easy.
I like it, man. Hey, good chatting with you. We'll chat again before I get out of here, okay?
All righty, thanks.
All right, it is Tim Daly Infinity. It is 4594 South State Street, so come on by. We're here until 6 o'clock tonight. All right, got to catch a break. Late on the clock again. We'll get to the drive at 5 coming up and then do a little NBA with our buddy Howard Beck. We'll say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. Porter, I've been doing this job for 18 years, and I still think if I keep doing it, and let's say I do it for another 10 or 15, I still will put a protein bar in my mouth 30 seconds before I need to be back on air. I've been doing this 18 years, and I just did it again. I don't know why.
That's where we're at on this segment. Hey, you're not alone. You're not alone. I think that when you work in this business, there are obviously a lot of fun, easy parts about it. One of the harder parts about it is squeezing meals into lunchtime, which sometimes fits between your segments, and that sometimes is 4-5 minutes at the max.
Got 2 Uncrustables down, got a protein bar down, a string cheese down. We're doing all right. All right, 5. They drive at 5. We'll do a little quick segment here because I do want to get to Howard Beck, some NBA. Steph Curry is in town. The Jazz are in action tonight. But a quick little reset on kind of some of the things we've kicked the tires on with Utah football heading to Houston to take on the Houston Cougars as a 4-point favorite. And it will be the debut of Mike Bajakian as the play caller. And as we've kind of discussed with our guests, and I'll just kind of reiterate here, I'm not expecting Isaac Wilson to go for 350 and 5 touchdowns or whatever. Like, I think really what to expect, or even as I've said all show, maybe more accurately what to hope for, is can we get Isaac to like 215, 220, 220 yards passing? Can we get 58% completion percentage? Can we get a touchdown? Maybe 2, 1 pick, even if he throws 1 pick, that's fine. Let's keep those picks down. Houston does not stop the run well. Can we get Mekhi Bernard over 20 touches and like 125, 130 all-purpose yards and maybe a touchdown? Baby steps, right? Dorian Singer, 5 catches. Brant Keithy, 5 catches. Each 60, 70 yards, and maybe one finds the end zone, or Money Parks gets a big play. Like, just be who you are. But I do believe the defense should go pitch a shutout. Houston has been shut out a couple of different times, and Utah's defense is getting healthy now. And as they get healthier, I think we'll see a better representation of who they are. But Houston did not score against Cincinnati or Iowa State. 14 points against a really bad Kansas team. I'm expecting a pretty dominant performance from Utah football tomorrow. We'll get to BYU in a second. And I think they should go thump them. I do not want to be watching this game tomorrow in the fourth quarter, and it's like 7-3, and Utah, needs a late second pick 6 to get a win by 1. I mean, ultimately, I think we need more of a statement. I feel different though about Brigham Young, not the man, the school. BYU just needs to get a win, no matter what. They're an underdog on the road. They're 7-0, and you win that game in any way, shape, or form. And BYU has shown the ability to do that, certainly through the first 7 games of the season, as they are clean now and approaching the top 10. They get a win on the road. I think they're a top 10 team. So we've got a busy college football weekend ahead. World Series action comes your way in about 45 minutes from right now. It's the Yankees and the Dodgers. But let's bring in my guy, Koo Kim, out here at Tim Dahle Infinity, which is 4594 South State Street. Are you a Yankee fan, Dodger fan? Are you a baseball fan at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
all right.
I guess so.
It's not a very emphatic answer.
No, I guess not. But I do like watching Shohei.
He's unlike anything I've ever seen, man. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan, but nothing but respect for Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers. So with your job and being a dad, you don't have time to watch sports. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, because I remember there are days before my kids were born where I was in 3 fantasy football leagues, and I was on top of each one of them. And then now it's like when someone asks me to be in a league, I'll just say, I won't have time.
Just can't do it.
Yeah, there was one year where actually I joined the league. I never set up my lineup once, and I won the league.
Oh, wow.
That was crazy.
That's an indictment on all of us that actually take it seriously, unfortunately.
It was the year that Cooper Kupp just won off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he blew up. He blew up. All right, forever warranty. You guys offer what you call a forever warranty out here at Tim Dahle Infinity. Let's unpack exactly what that is.
Like I said, it's going to cover the powertrain for as long as you own the car. On all the qualified vehicles, they get the forever warranty. It's one of the biggest selling points in all of our Tim Dahle stores, right? Forever warranty is something that's going to cover the powertrain for as long as you own the vehicle.
And you were telling us earlier that you guys actually, your P&L statement doesn't like that. You guys actually lose money on that.
No, and it's funny that you bring it up because we actually had a meeting about it today, right? And we all voted to keep that instated, and we pay more to put into the portfolio to appease our actuaries and hopefully offset a lot of the losses.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why you have so much repeat business, because that's a goal of yours, right? To make sure you don't just want to sell somebody one car, you want to sell them every car the rest of their life, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you heard that from somebody before.
I did. I do this from time to time, Q, just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest thing is just making sure we have volume, right?
Yeah.
And make sure customers are happy and making sure that their backs are rubbed and feeling like the process is easy and seamless and unlike any other luxury dealership you've ever been to, where it's just, oh, that was easy. I love it when customers come in. That was easy. That was the fastest process I've ever been through. I love hearing that.
So the neophyte way of saying it is Infinitis are luxury cars without paying luxury prices. Is that a fair assessment of what they are?
It is, but at the same time, I remember what Infinitis were back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Infinitis were like some of the coolest cars out there, right? This new Infiniti QX80, I think it's revamped that style and brought that energy back to life, in my opinion.
What about parents who have like 15, almost 16-year-old? You got cars for like high schoolers that you know are going to bang them around a little bit, they're going to wreck them a little bit?
You're talking about new or used?
Well, it depends on your budget, but I would say, like for me, I've raised a child. I wasn't going to get him a new car and sure enough, the car I got him, he wrecked anyway. Like you have to know when your kids are about to drive, if you get them a brand new car, you're going to be paying a lot for expensive. They're going to wreck it. They just are. So like used cars for parents out there.
Well, used cars, I mean, but even these CPO Q50s, you got to think about this. It's one of the best price point all-wheel drive sedans you can buy a teenager, right? Because, you know, like the biggest thing that we get in the car business is my friends will say, hey, Koo, do you guys have a car that's around 10, 15 grand, you know, that I can sell to my 16-year-old or buy for my 16-year-old? They'll always say, is it a Toyota? And, you know, is it this? Is it that? Or is it all-wheel drive, right? But if you compare this car, the sedan that we have here, and if it's a certified pre-owned or a used car, it's one of the best price point all-wheel drive cars.
Very nice. All right, what would you recommend as far as somebody to get the process started to find the vehicle they want?
Whatever they want. They want to call in, we'll take care of it. If they want to send in an internet lead, we'll take care of it. If they want to do everything via text, we'll take care of it, right? Or if they want to walk straight into the dealership, that's fine too.
Good stuff. Hey, well, thanks for having us out. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
All right, our guy Koo Kim out here at Tim Dolly Infiniti. It's 4594 South State Street. Come on by and say hi. All right, we're going to do some basketball with Golden State in town. Steph Curry's in town, and Howard Beck from The Ringer. Not going to hear a better basketball guest anywhere. So keep it right here on ESPN 700.